What is going on, guys, and welcome to Responsive Restaurant Website. And like the name already suggests, in this video we're going to be creating a responsive website for a restaurant. Now, what technologies are we going to be using to build this project? We're going to be using a HTML5, CSS3, Bootstrap 4, jQuery, Font Awesome 5, and Google Fonts. So what we're going to be creating in this project, we'll first start off with a social icons over here on the top. That's going to have a transition effect where they change the color over time. Then on the right hand side, we're going to have the address of the restaurant. Then over here, this is going to be a header section where we're going to have a title, and this is going to be a button that's going to have a hover effect, also a CSS transition hover effect. And over here, this is going to be the link. And if we press the link, we're actually going to go down to the remaining of the page. Now, for these three elements, we're going to use a CSS animation where you can see that the title slides from the left and the button slides from the right. And over here, you can see that this infinite bounce for the link is also a CSS animation. After that, you can see that for a header, as I'm hovering over the header, there's a ripple effect. And we're going to do that using jQuery. Now, once we press the link over here, we slide down where we're going to have a special items section. And over here, this is going to be our navbar. So let me go over the few things that are done with the navbar. First, as you can see that as I'm sliding down, you see over here that navbar becomes fixed at a certain position, and the padding goes less. So the padding is going to be less over here at this point than it is over here. Now also we're going to have our navbar banner, our title, or navbar brand. You can call it however you would want. Over here, these are going to be the links. And like I said, the links are going to have a smooth scroll effect. So as I press over here, we're going to scroll smoothly to the section which we would select. And over here, you can see that this is going to be our button. That's going to be all the way on the right. And we're going to use a Bootstrap classes to actually place these links over here in the center. And like I said, the website is going to be responsive. So if I shrink over here my screen, you can see over here that this is going to be our Bootstrap navbar. However, you see over here this button. This is not going to be a default Bootstrap button. We're going to use some customization for this. So once I click over here, you see over here, we're going to have these bars that actually change the location and change how they are actually displayed. So if I keep clicking, my menu is displayed. However, this is going to be a little custom button for us. Then once we're done with the navbar, this is going to be a special items section. Now in this section, we're going to have a pictures of items, and as I'm hovering over the item, you will see that we're going to use a CSS outline to get this effect. And also you can see over here that we're going to have actually a link on top of the picture, and once I press the link, you will see that we're going to have a gallery, and we're going to use a jQuery plugin in order to create this gallery. And I can close the gallery, and now I can keep on continuing with our website. Now, once we're done with the special items section, then we can go, let's say, to the menu. So I can scroll down all the way to the menu. And for the menu, we're going to have a background. Then we're going to place a white overlay over the picture for the background picture. And over here, we're just going to create some menu items. Now, once we're done with the menu, we can actually go to a about section. We're going to have a title, a paragraph over here. And over here, this is going to be our link. And over here on the right hand side, this is where we're going to be where we have our images. And as you can see that as I'm hovering over the image, the rest of the images get lower opacity, so they're more see-through. And also you see over here that this image is going to have a transform effect and also the outline effect. And we're going to get this done using a CSS Z index. Now after that, when we scroll down over here, you'll see that this is going to be a review section where there's going to be customer name, customer picture, and over here there's going to be a paragraph. And we're going to use a Bootstrap carousel for this. So I press over here, you can see that I have a carousel with a different customers. Then next we're going to have a theme section where we're going to use Bootstrap cards. And over here we're going to place images on top of the Bootstrap card. And over here in card footer, we're going to place some social icons again. So for the icons again, we're going to use a CSS transition, where as you can see, as I'm hovering over the icon, it's actually lifts up a little bit. So we're going to be using CSS transition for that. And after we're done with a theme section, then we're going to have a Google Maps, where we're going to use a Bootstrap responsive item. And over here on the right, there's going to be a form that's actually, as we're hovering the form, you can see that opacity changes, it becomes darker. And over here, we're going to have a form, and these are going to be form add-ons. So we're going to work with a input, and we're going to look at how we can create a input add-on. And over here on the bottom, there's going to be a button. And over here, this is going to be our footer over here. And over here on the right, this is actually going to be our scroll to the top button. So if I press over here, it scrolls all the way to the top. However, if I'm scrolling down, it again only appears at a certain pixel size. So it's not always sitting on the top. You see, as I'm scrolling up, it actually disappears. And as I'm scrolling down, it appears again. So I can click it over here, and I scroll all the way to the top. Now, let's go ahead and let's start building this project. This project is part of my Bootstrap 4 Ultimate 12 projects course on Udemy. And if you would like to get a coupon, the coupons are going to be located in the description of this video. Now, in this course, I'm going to be covering a Bootstrap tutorial, optional CSS FLEXBOX tutorial. Now, we're also going to be covering 12 interesting projects, and the overall course is more than 35 hours long. So like I said, if you would like to get the course coupons are located in the description of this video. But as always, before we can actually start building anything, we would need to do first our setup. So I'm sitting over here on my desktop, and I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be sushi folder. So I'm going to rename this one, and I'm just going to say that this folder name is going to be sushi. Now, once I have this folder, then I'm going to open up my text editor, which is going to be brackets in my case. And the only thing that I need to do in the brackets, I just need to take the folder and drag it over here to my text editor. Now, once I have my text editor set up, then what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to create a new file, and I'm going to say over here, and this is going to be index.html. Now, once I have the index.html, now I'm ready to go ahead and actually get a Bootstrap. But before let's do this, let's actually create a live preview so I can have it side by side. So I'm just going to close, let's say this one over here, and I'm just going to set them side by side. So as we're working, we're going to have a text editor, and over here, this is going to be my live preview where we can see all the changes that we're making for the website. Now I'm going to go back over here. And like I said, since we're going to be using Bootstrap 4, we actually need to go ahead and download Bootstrap 4. Now there's a couple of ways how we can actually get Bootstrap to our project. So if we're going to go to the main Bootstrap website, we have a few options we can get started, or over here, this is going to be the download. So if we click get started, the easiest way over here is there is a start template, and we can just copy and paste this start template, and we're going to go back over here to my text editor and just copy and paste it. And over here you can see that there's hello world, so you can see that Bootstrap is working. Now that's one of the options that we can do. This is the fastest one, and this uses a Bootstrap CDN. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to download the files, the Bootstrap files. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to show you that you can do this way. You do not need to download them, and this is going to work exactly the same way. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select it and I'm going to delete it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do a proper Bootstrap download. So what I'm going to say over here is I'm going to go back to the previous screen and we're just going to do a download. And over here, the first option that they offer us, that we can download compiled CSS and JS. And the only thing that's not included is going to be jQuery. And if you want to see how the files are set up in the download, you can down over here, and you can see over here it says that in the Bootstrap CSS and in the Bootstrap min CSS we have layout, content, components, and utilities included. And for the JavaScript files, if we go with Bootstrap bundle JS or Bootstrap bundle min JS, we have popper. However, the jQuery is not included. So the jQuery would be the one thing that we actually need to download separately. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go back to Sushi folder, and over here we're going to create a new folder that's going to be for the CSS and also a new folder for a JavaScript. So I'm going to create these two folders, and right off the bat, let's go and get actually jQuery. So you see over here I have a jQuery, and if we go to the jQuery website, we over here have this big download button. So we just press it over here and we can go right ahead and just get this first compressed production. So what I'm going to say over here that I would want a save link as, and I'm going to write over here, this is going to be jQuery min, and I'm going to go back to desktop. I'm going to go to where's my Sushi folder, and over here in the JavaScript, I'm just going to say this, save this jQuery. Now, once I have this jQuery downloaded, I can just close over here this tab, and we can go back to the Bootstrap. And what we would want to do is actually go ahead and download this Bootstrap. So what we're going to say over here with compiled CSS and JS, and we just click over here to download. And now what we would need to do is go back to our downloads, extract the files that we have downloaded, and get the CSS and the JS files that we need. So it would be good to remember that we would want Bootstrap CSS or Bootstrap min CSS or Bootstrap bundle JS or bundle min JS. So let me go back over here. I'm going to go to the downloads. Over here, this is going to be my zip folder. I open up the folder, and over here, we're just going to go in, and you can see over here for the CSS, what we would want is we would want Bootstrap min CSS. So let me find it where it is, and over here this would be a Bootstrap min CSS. So I'm just going to drag this file out, and then we're going to look for a JS, and that should be Bootstrap bundle, and we're going to go with min JS. So let's go and get this file. So over here this is going to be Bootstrap bundle min JS, and again let me just drag this out over here, and I can just close over here my downloads for now. Now let me go back to the Sushi over here, and I'm just going to grab this JS over here file, and let me just connect it over here in the folder. Let me grab it over here. So now my Bootstrap JS is sitting in my JS folder, and I'm going to grab the min CSS over here, and we're just going to get it to a CSS over here folder. So once we have over here the Bootstrap min and JS and the jQuery, now what we would want to do is we're going to go back over here to our index.html, to our text editor, and what we would want to do is do a basic HTML setup. So what I'm going to say over here that I would want a new full skeleton, and I can guarantee you that you have this kind of option with any text editor that you're working with. So over here we're just going to go with the full skeleton, or you can obviously create your own skeleton where we have a doc type. This is going to be HTML, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be language English, and over here we have a basic link and a basic script. So let's go ahead and let's just say that this is going to be a Sushi project, over here project, and let's say that I'm going to call this recording because I'm going to put them side by side as I'm working. So this would be Sushi project recording, and over here the first thing that I would want is to get a Bootstrap CSS. So here I'm going to say that I would want in the CSS, I would want Bootstrap min CSS over here. So this is what I'm going to have. Then once I have this Bootstrap min CSS over here, then the next thing that I would want is actually go back to this CSS folder over here. And in the CSS folder, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this main CSS, where we're going to have all our styles. Now, once I have my main CSS, now back in index.html, I'm going to create a comment because there's going to be few things that we're going to be placing in the head. So I'm going to say that this is going to be a Bootstrap CSS. Then after that, we're going to create our own CSS. So I'm just going to say that this is going to be a main CSS over here. And we're going to create another link. So I'm going to say link and relationship style sheet. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be, again, CSS. And we're going to use a main CSS over here. So this is going to be for all our styles and everything. Now, once we're done over here in head element, now what we would need is to include the jQuery, and we also would want to include a Bootstrap JS. So first over here in a script, I'm going to say that this is going to be JS, and we're just going to get our jQuery over here. Once we have the jQuery, let's place a comment that this is going to be a jQuery. Once we have the jQuery, now we would want a Bootstrap JS. So we're going to say Bootstrap JS over here. And again, we're going to create a script. So I'm going to say that this is going to be script tags. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be a source. And for the source, what we would want, again, is a JS over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be bundle min JS over here. Now, once we have these two, we can go ahead and test it out whether everything is working with the Bootstrap. So as we know, there's a syntax that we need to use with the Bootstrap. So I'm just going to say over here, this is going to be a container. And in the container, we're going to place a row. And in a row, we're going to place a column. And I'm going to be using for this project Emmet. And for those of you who haven't worked with Emmet, there's going to be a small crash course of Emmet, some part of it, just so you can go ahead and actually get up to speed. But over here, once we have this, let's say, column, then over here, we're going to place one element. And I'm just going to say this is going to be heading 1. I'm going to say hello world. And now let's go ahead and let's say that, let's copy and paste this. And now you can see right away that using this Bootstrap syntax, we have two columns side by side. So we already know that our Bootstrap is working. Now, in order to check it out whether the Bootstrap JS is working, later on, once we're going to be working with the carousel, we're going to be able to test this out. But since I'm recreating the project, I already know that everything is going to be working fine. So we can go ahead and we can go to our next thing that we would need to download. And that's going to be Font Awesome over here. And we're going to use Font Awesome for the icons. And we're going to be using a Font Awesome 5. So if you're going to go to Font Awesome website, over here you have an option where we can just right away download over here. So once I press the download, now my Font Awesome is actually downloading. However, we can go back over here and we can check it out how we can get started with Font Awesome. So we click on Get Started. And over here we have this option, SVG with JS. And we also have an option of using Font Awesome free CDN. So Content Delivery Network. But we already downloaded, so we're fine with this. We don't really need to apply for this because as far as I know, you need to give them your email or something like that. So if you don't want to do that, you can just download like we just did. And over here, the way they suggest how we should include Font Awesome in our project, we need to grab a Font Awesome all.js, which is going to be located with SVG with JS. Then we're going to go to JS folder. And over here, there's going to be Font Awesome all.js. And what we need to do is grab this file, get it to our folder. And over here, what we would need in the head, we would need to use the script tags and just get reference to this file. So let me go back again to my downloads. And you can see over here, this is going to be my Font Awesome zip. And just to make things more clear, I can just grab these ones and put in a trash. And over here, I'm going to open up Font Awesome zip. And once I have it open, then there's going to be a folder. Then we're going to go SVG with JS. And over here in the JS folder, now we would need Font Awesome all JS. And again, what we would want is to grab this file over here, and we can just close this one over here and open up the sushi. Now in the sushi folder, like I said, we had a JS over here. So what I'm going to do over here, I can just grab this guy over here, get it to sushi first, and let's see where is my JS folder, and just grab it and place it over here in my JS folder. Now let me go back again to my text editor, and now again I would need to link this. So what I'm going to say over here, that there's going to be a link, and I'm going to say that there's going to be a link with Font Awesome, and we're going to say JS over here. Now once we have a Font Awesome JS, what I would want is a script, and in the script tags again we're going to say source, and in the JavaScript folder I'm going to have Font Awesome all JS. And they have changed a little bit of syntax. So if you have worked with a Font Awesome 4.7, now when they're using Font Awesome 5, they actually have a little bit different prefixes. Now over here, if we go to how to use, then, and we scroll it down over here, you see that the style and the style prefixes are FAS and FAR, which is for pro, FAL, which is also for pro, and FAB. And over here they say that FA prefix has been depreciated. So they're not using this FA like they used to use before. So let's go ahead and let's actually test it out over here. So if I'm going to go back over here to my text editor, and let's say over here that I'm going to create a new element, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be a, let's say, link. Link is going to have a href over here, and we're going to say this is going to be dummy link. And within a link, we're going to place a Font Awesome icon over here, and I'm just going to say this is going to be FA. And once we have the FA, then we're going to say this is going to be FA, let's say, home. And if we remember, we need to place over here FAS. So this is going to be I element, and it's going to have two classes, FAS and FA home. I'm going to go back over here, and sure enough, we have it over here, our little icon. And you can see that it's located all the way on here in the corner. Now, if we would want to make it bigger, I'm just going to use FA, let's say 5x. This will be another class. And now we can for sure see our icon over here. So let me save this. And if you want to explore more how we can use Font Awesome icons, you can just go down and explore in a bigger detail. However, once we're working with the projects, we're going to use some of these classes and some of these options. Now, once we're done with Font Awesome, the next thing that I would want is Google Fonts. So I'm just going to say over here that there's going to be Google Fonts. And once we open up the link over here, then what I would want for this particular website and project, I'm just going to get a slant for the font slant, and I'm just going to make it max. And over here, once we have the max slant, over here, there's this Mr. Default. So what I'm going to say over here that I would want to include this font. So we're going to open up over here, and we're just going to copy and paste first the link for the Google Fonts, and we're going to go back to our text editor. And once in the text editor, we're going to say over here that there's going to be Google Fonts, and we're just going to make a comment, and we're going to say Google and fonts over here. Once we have these Google Fonts, then we're just going to copy and paste the link over here. And also what we would need to do is in our main CSS, we just need to include the font family. So let me copy this over here, copy and paste this, copy and paste this line. Now, once I have this, I'm going to go back to main CSS, and we're just going to say for the whole body over here, we're going to copy and paste this font family. Now I see over here how my fonts change. So now I know that I have a font family, Mr. Default. After we're done with font family, we're going to go back over here and we can just close this tab. And now we're going to look at two places where we can get nice images. One is going to be pixels, where we can just search over here for images. So let's say over here, if I would just write sushi, since this is going to be a sushi website, right? You can go back over here and you can check all the images that we can get. And for the team, or let's say for the customer, we're going to be using a gratistography.com website where we're going to have a bunch of funky images that we can use. And for the colors for this project, as always, we're going to be using a coolors.co, because if we go over here to this website and we can just click over here to this start generator, and what it's going to do is this is going to actually give us 5 choices where we can pick up colors and the colors that actually would go together. And if I press, let's say, space, and if I keep going, you see over here that I have multiple choices that I can have. Now I can unlock or lock the color that I really like. So let's say if I unlock it and if I keep pressing the tab, there's all the time going to be a new 5 colors. However, if I lock the color, then there's going to be color, the one that's locked, and rest of them that are not locked. So if I see over here that if we keep pressing and if we just keep choosing the colors that we for sure would want, see over here we have only one color over here changing. I'm sorry, well, 2 colors actually in this case. So these 3 are locked, and over here these would be the colors that would actually match with this. And now that we're done with our setup, we can go ahead and actually start working on this project. And the first thing that we're going to be building is going to be over here this top section where we're going to have our social icons, and over here this would be the address of the restaurant. Now also what I'm going to do right away, since this is a finished website, what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to open up side by side the project we're actually working on. So I'm going to over here open up this sushi project, and over here this is going to be our recording. And once I'm done over here, we can go back to our text editor, more precisely to index.html, and start working. And like I said, I'm just going to do a very quick crash course in the Emmet. And Emmet is not exclusively to a brackets text editor by any means. You can get it on any text editor. And what Emmet does, it speeds up the workflow for HTML and CSS, that you can actually write your code in abbreviations. So let's say that I would want to create a, let's say again, like for always for a Bootstrap, we would want a div that would be with the container class, and then there would be a row class, and there would be a column class. So normally the way we would do that, we would write a div, then we would say over here class, and over here we're going to say, let's say container. And then now once we have our container, then we're going to say that this is going to be div class, and again we're going to say row. And once we have the row class, now we would want a column. So I'm going to say over here again, this is going to be div class, and this is going to be the column. Now the way we can do this with an Emmet is much more faster, because the way we write this with Emmet, we're just going to say over here, this is going to stand for the class. And if we're just writing simple divs, we can just place a dot, just say over here container. Then once we have over here, this is going to be our first div, we can actually nest the next element that would actually be after it. So I'm just going to say over here that within this container, we would want to nest a div with a class of row, and within the class of row, we would want to nest a class of column over here. So I press tab over here, and you can see that once I press the tab, this is what I get. I get right away div with the container, with the row, and with the column. And I can guarantee you that once you start using Emmet, you're never going to go back to actually writing any kind of HTML or CSS code without Emmet. Now, it might be a little bit weird in the beginning because you're going to be forgetting things. However, once you start using it, you're actually never going to go back to writing the code the regular way. Now, if we're not creating div, we can actually write it like this. We can write what kind of element. So let's say this is going to be a section element, and then we can include the class that we would want. So let's say over here container, and let's say if we would want the ID for this section, let's say I'm going to say that this is going to be the main section. And again, if I press tab, you see what we get. We get an element, which is going to have a class. And over here, this is going to be ID. And if you're going to go to online, and let's say I'm over here, I'm going to write that this is going to be Emmet. Once we're going to go to Emmet, there's tutorials, there's explanations how to do it. Like I said, I'm just giving you a quick introduction because we're going to be using Emmet extensively throughout a project. But if you go down over here, you can either download, and if we're going to go to documentation, everything is explained here in clean English. So we have a syntax, element types, and CSS, and all that. And I'm going to, again, let you explore this on your own since we have a project to make. But I already showed you where we can get all the information that we need. So I'm going to close over here this Emmet. And like I said, we're going to create over here this top section. So the first thing that I would want is to create a container fluid from the Bootstrap. So I'm going to say that I'm going to create a div that's going to have a class of container fluid over here. This is going to be our top section. Then I would also want to include this div a class of info. This is going to be the class that we're actually going to style ourselves. And also from the Bootstrap, we're going to use a padding, and we're going to say that padding is going to be all around, and we're going to use a padding with a size of 3. Also, what we would want is to include a ID for this div, and the ID is going to be top icons over here. Once we press the tab, now you can see that I have my div. Now within a div, I would want another div. This is going to be a class of row, and within a class of row, we would want a div with a column, which means that there's going to be one column that's going to be spanning on all screen sizes, all the way from one side all the way to another side. And this div is also going to have a few other FLEXBOX classes that we're going to add later on. So I'm going to press tab over here, and now within this div, what I would want is to create another div, and this div is going to have a class of info icons. This is going to be, again, our class that we're going to create ourselves, and also a padding all around. So this is going to be, instead of padding 2, this is going to be instead of padding 3. Then once we have this, now what I would want is to place these icons. And the way I'm going to work with icons, I'm going to create a new link over here. And within the link, I'm going to place my font awesome icon. So I'm going to say over here I, and then we're going to use FAB, which is going to be class for the social icons. And over here, what we would want is a Facebook. And we would want also size. So I'm just going to say this is going to be FAB. Then I'm going to say FA, and I'm just going to leave this blank for now. And if you already remember, we had a size. And the size that we used, we had FA. And then we have an option of, let's say, 5x or 1x or 3x. So we're going to use over here 2x over here like this. Now, what also we're going to do is we're going to have a margin right for the whole link. So I'm going to say for the link, I would want a margin right. And I'm just going to say that margin right is going to be 2. And also the class that we're going to create ourselves, which is going to be primary color. And since we're not using Sass, and since we're not using CSS variables, we're going to create over here this class where we're going to add our primary color. So once I have all this, I'm just going to go back over here and I'm going to press tab. Now I have my first link. And since the link is not going to be actually going to Facebook, we're just going to place a hashtag over here. Now, once we have over here this link, I would want to copy and paste this actually 3 times. So I'm going to select element and copy and paste this 3 times. Now, what I would want right now is to change the destination. So the first one, I'm going to say Facebook over here. And you can see that I have my font awesome icon. Then the next one that I would want is a Instagram over here. Then after Instagram, we're going to say that this is going to be Twitter. And after Twitter, we're going to have Yelp. So this is going to be Yelp icon over here. Now, once we have the font awesome icons, You see over here, I placed them in one div. Now what I would want is have another text. So I'm going to say over here, this is going to be heading 2. And again, we're going to use a primary color. So we're going to write over here the class that we're going to create ourselves, which is going to be primary color. And for this heading 2, we're going to have a padding all around that's going to be 2. Now, once within a heading 2, we can use the emit option where we just place a curly braces. And over here, we're going to write the text that we would want inside. So I'm going to say over here, 8,325. This is going to be the address. And I'm going to say over here, this is going to be Lincoln Boulevard. Now, also what I can do is I'm just going to include text, capitalize class. Text, capitalize over here, which means that every word is going to start with capital letter. And over here, I'm going to say Lincoln Boulevard. Over here, Boulevard. And we're going to say this is going to be Los Angeles. And we're going to say this is going to be California. And we're going to say 90045. Now, once we have all this, again, we're going to go back on at the end. And over here, we're going to place a tab. Now, you see over here, I have my font awesome icons. And I have my text over here. And it doesn't matter of the screen size. This is how they're going to be. Now, what we can do with a Bootstrap form, we can actually go all the way to the top where is going to be our column, and we can just include few classes. They're actually going to change the layout using a FLEXBOX, CSS FLEXBOX, and those classes would be dflex. So we're going to create over here this as a FLEXBOX. Then we're going to say that this is going to be justify content between class, which is going to make sure that we place these icons and this text as far away from each other as possible. Now keep in mind though, we have over here 2 divs. So these would be 2 children of this FLEXBOX parent. So we have one div over here with all the icons, and then we have a heading 2 over here. And what I'm saying is I would want to place these ones as far as possible from each other. So what I'm going to say over here is deflex, then I'm going to say justify, I'm going to say content, and for the content we're going to say between over here like this. And over here, once what we would want is to place them actually on an even level. And what I mean by this, so let's go back over here, and this is going to be the file that I'm working on. And since they are different, since these are font awesome icons and this is actually text, what we would want is I would want to say align items, which would position items vertically, and I'm going to say baseline. And basically what I mean by this is now what's going to happen is they were going to be on even level. So they're not going to, the text is not going to be higher, let's say, than a icon. And the last thing that I would want is a flex wrap, which basically is going to assure that this is always going to be wrapping once the screen size gets small. So once there's not enough room for both of them, you see over here, we're going to use a flex wrap. Now, once we have this set up, we can actually go ahead to our CSS and start styling this. So I'm going to go back to my main CSS. I open main CSS, and we're just going to add some styles over here. And the style that we're going to add first is we're just going to say for the background, we're going to say info. Remember the class that we created for this whole div over here, for this whole container. Remember this info. Now we're going to start styling this. And the way we're going to style this, we're going to say over here background. And we're going to say background is going to be hashtag C9C. And then we're going to have a 1AC over here. So this is going to be our background color. And what we can do over here, we can just make a comment that this is going to be technically our white color. So let's just assume that this is going to be white. It's more like smoke white or something grayish, but let's just say that this is going to be our white color. And right after that, we can create this class that we have been using, which was primary, and we said color. Now in this primary color, what I would want is actual color, and we're going to say the color is going to be hashtag D33, and then we're going to say 25, and this is going to be F. So this is going to be our primary color. So you can see that right away our icons got the color and also the text because we included this class over here. Now, what I'm going to do again is I'm going to save this and we're going to go back over here and we're going to say the comment that this is going to be our, let's say, red color. And for the red color, we're just going to get this one. So we're going to copy and paste this over here like this. And now what I would want to do is change over here the word spacing. So I'm going to say over here for the class of info heading 2, what I would want is a word spacing, and I'm just going to say 0.6, and we're going to say REMs. So the reason why we're using REMs, because we would want to make this website responsive. So as the screen size actually changes, so will actually the word spacing. Then after that, what we want is work with these social icons. And what I'm going to say over here is info. So again, I'm selecting the class of info and the links that are inside of class of info. And over here, I'm going to say that there's going to be a CSS transition. And once we're working with CSS transition, we have few options over here. We can either write specifically the property that we would want to affect as the change takes place. So let's say over here, I could say that there's going to be a color. So this is going to be the property that I would want to affect. Then I would want to write how long the transition should take place. So I'm just going to say over here, there's going to be 2 seconds. And then I'm going to write what would be the way how the transition would take place. And there's a few options, and we're just going to use ease in and out. So it's going to start slow, and then it's actually going to end slow also. Now, once we have this ease in and out, or we can just use ease, or like I said, there's a few other options. Then we can use over here info, and we're just going to say a. So again, we're selecting a class, we're selecting link, and we're just saying hover. So what happens as we're hovering? Well, what I would want is actually to change the color, and I'm just going to say over here the color should change to black. And you can see that I'm going to be using hashtag 2424 and 24. So now what happens? That the color doesn't change just when I hover. It actually takes 2 seconds for the change to take place. Now we also could have an option over here where we write a delay. So let's say over here that if I write 4 seconds, then the actual delay would also happen. So let me go back over here. Now we're going to wait 4 seconds, and then the actual transition is going to take place over 2 seconds. So overall, we're actually doing this over 6 seconds. Now we're not going to use delay. I'm just showing you that's the option that you can use. But actually, we are done with our first section. So if we're going to go back over here, and if I refresh over here, now I have my font awesome icons and text over here. And the fact that Bootstrap 4 is using a FLEXBOX properties, we set them as far away from each other as we can over here. And we line them up over here perfectly in the center with each other. And now we're ready to move on and start working on our header section. And the next section we're going to be making is going to be a header section with our title, our button, and over here with the link that leads us down the page. So let's go ahead and let's start working in our index.html. But before we create a next section, let's create comments so it is easier for us to work with our document later on. So I'm going to say that this is going to be social icons, and over here we're going to say this is going to be end of social icons. So I'm going to create 2 comments, end of social icons. Now after that, what I would want to do is create another set of comments. So I'm just going to say this is going to be a header section, and over here we're going to say end of header section. So let's say over here end of header section. Now once we have all the comments, now what I would want to do is start placing our elements. And over here, the first element I'm going to create is I'm going to create a header element. The header element is going to have an ID of header over here. So we're going to say hashtag header. And once we have this, now what I would want is to create a container. So we're going to create a div with a class of container. Within the div, we're going to create a div with a class of row. And within the row, what we would want is to create a div with a class of column. Now, once we have these divs, next what I would want to do is create a div with a class of banner and also with a class of text center, because I would want to place my text in the center of the column that I'm working on. And then after that, what I would want to create is heading 1, and this heading 1 is going to have classes with display 1, which is going to make this text large, and also we're going to have a class of text capitalize over here. Now, once I have my heading 1 element, now what I would want to do is actually place the text over here. But I'm going to place the text in the small tags over here, the first set of text. I'm going to say over here sushi. And once I will have my small tags, then over here I'm going to create a strong tags. So I'm going to create a strong element over here. And once I have my strong element, I'm going to write over here that the strong element also is going to have a class of primary color. So I'm going to say primary color. And over here as a text, we're going to say that this is going to be monster. So we're going to have our sushi monster. Now, once I have these curly brackets, I can just press tab over here. And what I would want to do is over here, set them line by line. So we'll have a sushi and we're going to say monster. So once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is once I get to the bigger screen, I wouldn't want it to span it all across. So I'm going to go back over here to the heading 1, and I'm actually going to say that the width is going to be 50% of the size of the parent element. And over here, as you can see, it moves to the left. So what I would want to do is place it in the center. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say MX, which stands for margin. X is going to be for left and right, which is going to be for horizontal. And we're just going to say auto. So we're going to place it in the center. Then once we have a heading 1, now what I would want to do is create a button. And I'm just going to say over here that there's going to be a button. And we're going to add a Bootstrap class of button. And we're going to also add a class that we're going to create ourselves, which is going to be main button. And after that, we're going to say margin top bottom is going to be 4. And we're also going to use text. And we're going to say capitalize over here. Now, once we have this over here, we're going to write that the text within the button is going to be order online over here. We press the tab. And now this is going to be our link that's going to be displayed as a button. Now, once we're done over here with this banner, the next thing that I would want to do is all the way down by the header, I would want to create a link. So I'm going to say over here, there's going to be another link. And this one is actually going to have an href of special items, which is going to be the next section we're creating. But it's going to have also classes of button. And over here, this is going to be the header link class again, which we're going to style and create ourselves. And also the class of primary and color. Now, within this link, what I would want is a font awesome icon. So I'm going to say A, FAS, and we're over here going to say FA, arrow, and we're going to say down. So now once we have this over here, you see that we have our link and button. Now, once this is done, we can actually go ahead to a main CSS and start styling this header section. Now, before we jump to main CSS and start styling this header section, what I would want to do over here, I would just want to add the actual direction where we would want to go with this link. And over here, I'm going to say this is going to be special. Over here, items. And this pretty much is going to be the ID of my next section that we haven't built it yet. But since I already made the whole project before, I already know that this is what's going to be my ID. So once I click this link over here, we're going to scroll down to the next section. Now, once we have this, let's go to main CSS. And the first thing that I would want to do is create a comment. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be header section. So once I have it here, I'm just going to say header, and then let's just put some hashtags over here, just so we have some separation. Now, once we have that, the first thing that I would want to do is set the background for the header section. So I'm going to say over here that I would want to select header. And then for the header, I would want a background. And for the background, I'm going to say URL. And over here, now we would need to go back to image folder. So I'm going to go back over here. This is the folder of images, and you can see that it's located over here. And therefore, what we're going to do is we're going to place actually 2 dots before. And then over here, we're going to write this is going to be images folder. Then within the images folder, what we would want is we would want banner background. So this would be the image that we're getting. Now, once we have these images, one thing that I would want to do is set actually the height of the header. Because as you can see right now, the height of the header is actually just as big as all the elements in it. Now, what I would want to do is to have the height over here 100 view heights, 100 viewport. So basically what I mean by this. So once we open up the page, we have a height of over here, this top icon section, and then the rest of the viewport takes up the header. Now, as I scroll down, you see right away I have the nav bar starting. So basically this should be whole viewport minus this top section, whatever it is. So how do we do that? So we go back over here, and I'm just going to say that for the header is going to have min height, and the min height over here is going to be 100 view heights. So this would be 100 viewports. So what I'm having is, once I open it up, now it takes up the whole page over here like this. Now the problem is that now what I would want to do is I would actually want to get this extra height off the 100 view heights. So how I'm going to do this? Well, actually, I'm going to change it over here like this. I'm going to say that there's going to be calc function. And in the function, what I'm going to write that there's going to be 100 view heights. So that would be whole viewport over here, maximum viewport. And I would say minus. And over here, what I'm going to say is there's going to be 94 pixels over here like this. Now, the difference is going to be that in the smaller screen, this navbar is actually going to be more than 94 pixels. So in this case, you still would need to do some kind of media query where you actually set it up that for the one screen width, you would have one height over here minus, and for the other one, you would have the other one. But we're just going to go with a mobile looking like this. But once we save it over here, you can see over here that once I save it, now I see that this is going to be 100 view heights. So it's not going anywhere. So you can see that I'm trying to scroll, but nothing is happening. And nothing is happening because we have a 100% viewport minus 94%. Now where I'm getting this 94%, so I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to click inspect. And once I click the inspect, you can see over here that if I go and find where it is my container fluid, now it is in a small fonts. However, it says over here 94 pixels. So the height of it is 94 pixels. Now, once I know that, I can just subtract that from the 100 view heights. Now, again, it's going to be different if we're going over here. You see over here, the view height is going to be different. So if I look over here right now, the view height, this is actually going to be 146 pixels. So in normal case scenario, if you would want to do the same thing for the smaller screen, like I said, you would need to write some media query. But we're not going to do this in this case, so we're just going to leave it the way it is. Now, once I have this, there's a couple of things that I would want to fix with an image. You can see over here that it's not looking exactly like we would want. So what are we going to do with an image? Well, the first thing that we're going to say is there's going to be background, and we're going to say position. So what would be the position of an image? And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be center. And then after that, what I would want is background size. So I'm going to say background, and we're going to say size, and the size that we're going to choose is going to be cover. So in any screen size, the image is always going to cover the parent element. Then after that, what we would want is we would want background attachment, and we would want it fixed. And the reason why we would want it fixed, so we get this parallax effect. You see over here, as I'm scrolling, the image is actually fixed, but the text is moving over here. Now, once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is I would want a background, and I was going to say no repeat. So what I'm saying is I wouldn't want this image to repeat over here. You see over here I have one image, but then over here I have another one. The same image, but it's starting over here because the image is not big enough to cover. So I'm going to say over here that there's going to be background, and we're going to say that this is going to be background repeat, and we're going to say no repeat. So background repeat, and we're going to choose no repeat. Now later on I'm going to show you that there's a shortcut how to write this, but for now I'm just going to leave this long way just so you can see that what properties we're actually affecting. Now after that, also what I would want to do is I would want to give the whole body, the whole document basically, this color. You see over here the color for the fonts, this white grayish. So what I'm going to say over here, that I'm going to go to a body, and I'm going to write in the body that there's going to be color, and the color is going to be hashtag C over here, and 9C, C9C over here, and then we're going to say 1AC over here like this. So the same color as the top icon's background. Now once we have this, what I would want to do is actually add over here a darker overlay, so my text is actually better seen. So I'm going to go back over here, and before the background, what I'm going to say that there's going to be linear, and we're going to say gradient over here like this. Now once we have the linear gradient, we would want to place a comma over here in between, and in the linear gradient what we're going to write is that there's going to be RGBA, so that's going to be the color, and we're going to pick a black color. And the reason why we're picking RGBA, because over here we're going to choose as the last value the opacity. So the color is going to be black because we're going 0, 0, 0. However, the opacity is going to be 0.5. So we're going to leave it somewhere in the middle. Then once we have this, then we're going to place a second color. So I'm going to say over here, there's going to be another RGBA, and I'm going to copy this, and again, we're going to leave it over here, a black color. So I'm going to go back over here, and now you can see that I have a dark overlay. Now, by default, this one is going to be from the top to the bottom, but there's other values that we can write up front over here. Let's say we can write over here to right. So the colors would be to the right. Now we cannot see because colors are exactly the same, but if I would change it over here to 255, let's say, and you can see over here what's happening. So starting from the right, and over here, this would be the red color. So this would be this color over here. But by default, this is going to be top and bottom. So if I'm going to delete it over here, see it goes back over here that there is a red color. However, over here, this would be the black one. Now what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to get rid of the red one, and I'm going to leave it all black. So we're going to leave it over here the same the way it is. Now once we save this over here, and once we actually refresh over here, let's just check it out whether everything is actually working. Now we have the RGBA, and we need to get rid of this S. Now what I would want to do next, I would want actually to set it up, this text, exactly in the center. Now how I would do that? Well, actually I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to the main HTML over here, and I'm going to go back over here to the row. And what I would need to do is I would need to add some height to this row, and then add a FLEXBOX classes. Now once I have the height, so I'm going to say over here height, and I'm going to say 90. Now this is the class that we're going to be styling ourselves. So we're going to save it over here. We're going to go back to main CSS, and over here we're going to say that there's going to be a height, and we're going to say that the class is going to be height 90. So we're going to say over here height 90. Now over here, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste the same code over here. So what we're doing is we're setting up the row exactly the same height as our header. So they're both the same height. You can see that the values are exactly the same. So I'll save this over here, and now we can go back and actually use the fact that Bootstrap is using FLEXBOX by default. So over here I can just write some few FLEXBOX classes, and the first one is going to be align items, and now we need the value, and we're just going to say over here center over here. So now you can see what happens. Now my whole text moves exactly in the center because we applied this class. And over here, what I would want to do is I would want actually to place it in the center, also horizontally. So I'm going to say over here justify, and we're going to say content, and we're going to say content center. So now we're going to place it actually horizontally in the center. Now once we're done with all this, we can actually go back to main CSS and keep styling all our elements. Now, after the header is done, what we would want is banner heading 1. So we would want to style this guy over here. So we're going to go back over here, and I'm just going to say over here that there's going to be banner, and we're going to say heading 1. Now, what I would want to do over here, I'm going to say over here border, and we're going to say border top, and we're just going to give it a border top of 6 pixels, dotted line, and over here we're going to say that there's going to be again the same color. So if we're using the color for the text, the same color we're going to use actually for this dotted line. So I'm just going to grab this color, come back over here, copy and paste it, and now you can see I have my dotted line. And the same thing that I would want to do is for the border bottom. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over here. I'm going to make a new line. Maybe let's make a little bit more room over here for the whole document over here. And we're just going to say over here border bottom. So we're going to say over here border bottom. Now the top and the bottom actually has this border. Now what I would want after that, now I would want to actually style the button. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm just going to say there's going to be main btn. And for the main button, what I would want to do, first I would want a color, and I'm going to say color is going to be hashtag D33, and then we're going to say 25F over here. So this would be the color. Then we're going to say that there's going to be a font size, and for the font size we're going to say 2 REMs over here. Then after that we would want a border all around the button. So we're going to say over here border, and the border is going to be 2 pixels, solid, and again we're going to use the same color. So I'm just going to grab this color over here, I'm going to copy and paste the color, and you know what, let's do over here like this. Let's just create more room so we have room more to work. Now also what I would want to do is make a transition. So as I'm hovering, the color should change. However, again, it shouldn't happen instantly. It should actually take place over time. So I'm going to say over here transition. And for the transition, what I would want is all. So all the properties should be affected as I'm transitioning, whatever properties I'm choosing. And over here, I'm going to say this is going to take 1 second. And I'm going to say there's going to be ease. And we're going to say in and out over here. Now, once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is main. And we're going to say btn and hover. So now as we're hovering, what should happen? Well, the color should change over here to the black one. So I'm going to say over here the color should change to 242424. Border. The border, we're going to say that the border is going to change again. So we're going to say over here 2 pixels, and we're going to say solid. And for the color, we're going to use a white color. Well, white grayish color. So we're going to copy and paste this over here. And the next one is going to be a background. And for the background, again, we're going to use the same thing. So I'm going to copy and paste this. And we're just going to copy and paste it over here. And now let's check it out what we have. So as I'm hovering, the border and the background change and the actual color change. However, it doesn't happen instantly, it happens over time. Now, next thing that I would want to do is I would want actually work with a header link over here, the one that's actually hiding over here like this. And for the header link, we're actually going to use the absolute positioning. Now, because we're going to use the absolute positioning, I would want to set a parent container. And how do we set the parent container? We actually add a position relative to parent container. Now, what would be my parent container? I would actually want a header to be my parent container. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to say first that the parent container header is going to have position, and we're going to say relative. Now, once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is I'm going to say I would want to select a header, and we're going to say link. Now, once we are selecting the header link, what should happen? First, I'm going to say display, and we're going to say inline, and we're going to say inline block. Then after that, we were going to say position, and we're going to say position absolute. So you see over here how it moved actually down over here like this. Then after that, what I would want is I'm going to say over here that position is going to be bottom, and we're going to say 5%. So it's going to be 5% from the bottom. And left, we're going to say 50%. So 50% from the left. Then after that, what I would want is I would actually want to do the background. So I'm going to say over here background, And again, we're going to use the same color. So I'm going to go back over here. We're just going to copy and paste this. And for the background, we're going to give this color. Then for the border radius property, in order to make a rounded edges, we're going to say border radius, and we're going to give it like 10 pixels over here. Then after that, what we would want again is a transition. And for the transition, again, we're going to use the same thing. So we're going to say transition and all, and over here 2 seconds ease. And once we're hovering, what should happen? So I'm going to say header link over here like this. And for the header link, I would want is a color change. So I'm going to say color, and the color as I'm hovering should be black one. Now, once I save this, you can see what we have for now. So the only thing missing from our CSS is actually our animation, which we're going to add in a next section. You see over here the difference. Once I start the page, now I have animation from the left, then the bottom, the link comes over here, and this guy is all the time bouncing over here. Now over here, what we have is we have everything static so far. So let's go ahead and let's actually add the animation to our header. And as we're looking at the header, we can see that we have 3 elements that we would need to animate. So we're going to go to a banner heading 1, and that's going to be our first element that we need to animate. So how does CSS animation would work? Well, first, what we would need is a keyframes. So we're going to say over here that there's going to be keyframes. This is going to be the keyword that we need to write. And over here, this would be the name of our animation. And I'm just going to give it a pretty straightforward name. I'm just going to say from left, meaning that this button, or I'm sorry, this heading 1 is going to be animated from the left. Then the next thing that we do over here is we have the curly braces, the same as how we would be selecting something. And over here, the difference between transition and the animation is that we can actually add as many points of stoppage as we would want. So let's say with transition, you only have 2 states. You have the beginning state and the ending state. Only when I hover, something happens, and if I don't hover again, it goes back to normal. With animation, however, we can add as many states over here as we would want. Now, how do we do this? And again, this is just going to be for example. So you can write whatever percentages you would want, but I'm going to write over here 0. And that means that this is going to be 0%. And over here, again, we're going to make a curly braces. Then let's say over here, I'm just going to copy and paste this 3 times. And we're just going to put it in new line. And we're going to change the values. So over here, this is going to be 50%. And this is going to be 100%. So animation is going to have some kind of value when it's 0, some kind of value when it's 50, and something when it's 100%. Now, if we want to slide it from the left, what we would want to do is we would want to use a transform property. And over here, I'm going to say transform, and I'm going to say translate, and we're going to give it a negative value. So what I'm saying is at the 0%, move this text over here, 100 pixels, negative. So 100 pixels basically to the left. If I'm going to use 100 pixels positive, then we're going to move it the other direction, to the right. Because if you think about the translate, this is like an X and Y axis. So if you imagine that this is 0 on X axis, 100 pixels negative would be over here, and 100 pixels positive would be over here. Now, we're not limited to changing only one property over here. I also can say that on a 0%, the opacity should be over here 0. So it should be over here like this. Now, the next thing that I would want to do is set for 50%. Now, what I would want for the 50%, I'm going to say over here that on a 50%, I actually would want to move this text already towards me. So I'm going to say again, transform, and we're just going to change the value for the actual translate X. So I'm going to say translate X, and instead of negative 100 pixels, what I'm going to say is I'm just going to move it all the way to the right. So I'm going to say positive 30 pixels. So it's going to bounce a little bit. So it's going to come from the left. It's going to go further than it needs to go right. And on 100%, we're going to go back to normal. So I'm going to say over here, transform. And we're going to say transform and translate X. And we're just going to say over here 0. So this would be the starting position that you see over here anyway right now. And over here, what we're going to say is opacity, and we're going to say opacity 1 over here. Now this is what we're going to save. And then over here, with an element that we would want to actually animate, what we would need to write is animation. And now we would need to write the name, and the names need to match. So over here, I'm going to say from left. So that's going to be my animation. And then we have a couple of properties that we need to write. So first, what we would want is animation duration. So how long this animation is going to take place. And like with all my transitions and everything, I like to set them for a bigger value. So let's say over here for 4 seconds. And just for the sake that you can actually see what's happening. So let's go back over here, and we're going to go over here, and let's just refresh the page. And now you can see that it comes back and it bounces over here. So you can see that everything is working. Now, the next thing that I would want to do is actually have animation delay. So what I'm going to say over here, that there's going to be animation, and we're just going to say delay. And delay over here, we're just going to say that there's going to be 2 seconds over here. Now, once we have this, then we're going to go back over here. And once the page loads, you can see that it's going to take 2 seconds, and then it's going to bounce over here like this. Now, the problem over here is that I don't want this text to be showing for those 2 seconds while I have the animation delay. So that doesn't look very good. What I would want to do over here is I'm going to say over here that there's going to be a opacity 0 for the text. So let's go back over here for the banner H1. Let's set opacity of 0. So initially, once we load the page, you can see what happens. Nothing is happening, and then my animation starts. Now, here's another problem that happens if I add this opacity 0. Now, by default, it actually disappears. So it only appears once I have the actual animation running. And how do we actually fix this? We have another property that we can use for animation, and we're going to say over here animation, and we're going to say fill mode. And over here we have fill mode backwards, both and forwards. And basically what I'm saying is over here, once the animation is finished, it should stay in a state where it actually finished. It shouldn't go back over here to opacity 0. The only reason for opacity 0 is in the beginning while I have the delay running, I wouldn't want my text to be shown. So I'm going to save it over here. Once we refresh, and once I start the actual animation, you can see over here the text appears, and the text actually stays in on the page. So the opacity stays as 1. Now, if we know the original document, we know that there's going to be button moving from the right. So what we would need to do is actually get the same animation. We're just going to name it differently. We're going to say from the right, and we're going to add it to the button. So let's go back over here. Let's copy and paste this, and we're going to go for the button. And down over here, we're going to copy and paste this animation. And over here, let's write that this is going to be from the right, because we're going to be moving from the right. And what about these values? Well, the values are going to be the opposite. So if we have over here, translate X negative. So since we want the animation starting from the right, we're going to say positive 100 pixels. Then it's going to move negative 30 pixels. And over here, it's going to end up in the same position. Now down the road, once we're working with different sections, I would want to use this class of main button that we created. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say that there's going to be 2 classes. Not only there's going to be main button class, but we're also going to give it another class sushi, and we're going to say btn. And the only reason for this class is that I'm going to add the animation to this class over here. So then down the road, once I'm styling a different button, and I don't want to do all the styling, I just want to add this class that we created previously. I'm just going to add this class without the animation. So I'm going to save it over here, and we're going to go back over here, and over here for the class, we're just going to say over here dot sushi, and we're going to say btn. Now, once we have this, again, we're going to do the same thing. So first we're going to say animation, and we're going to say what animation name, and the animation name is going to be from the right. After that, we have the same values. So what we can do over here, we can just go up and copy and paste this. So animation duration, animation delay, and opacity, and animation fill mode. Because both of them work exactly the same way. The only difference is that they're mirroring where they're coming from. So if one is coming from the left, the other one is coming from the right. Now, once we have this, we're going to say over here, sushi button. We're going to go to my project, and then we start the page, and then we see what happens. So let's go ahead and let's check it out why it's not working. And the reason why it's not working, because I misspelled the animation name over here. So over here, if this is from right, then what I would need to do is I would need to match them. So I'm going to save it over here, refresh it, and now both of the animations should be working. Now, once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is for the header link, we would want to add this bounce effect. You see over here that it's infinitely bouncing. So how do we do that? We're going to go back over here and we're going to find header link, and then we're going to create a animation. So for the animation, we're going to say over here again that we would want a keyword, and the keyword is going to be keyframes, and we're going to say over here from bottom. Now, once we have from bottom running, the next one is going to be again 0%, and again you can change the percentages how you would want. So those are basically just states at which your animation is in. So you can add 0, 10%, 20%, 15%, 5%, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm just going to go with a solid numbers just so it doesn't get confusing. So I'm going to say over here transform, and we're going to say translate, and we're going to say Y, and we're going to say negative 10 pixels over here. So first, what I would want is translate this button down 10 pixels. I'm sorry, this is actually going to be up because negative is going to be going up. Then once we have this negative running, the next thing that I would want to do is actually have a 50%. So I'm going to go back over here, and there's going to be 50%. And over here, we're going to say transform, and transform Y. Now we would want 10 pixels, and 10 pixels is going to be positive. So I'm going to say over here that there's going to be 10 pixels positive. So it moved up, and then it moved down 10 pixels more than the actual position. And the last thing that I would want to do is actually move it again up 10 pixels. So I'm going to say over here 100 and 100%. And for the 100%, we would want a transform, and we're going to say translate, and we're going to say translate Y, negative 10 pixels again. So once we have this, then we're going to go back to the header link, and over here we're going to write the same thing. We're going to say first the animation name, so we're going to say animation, and we're going to say from bottom over here. Now once we have the animation running, then we're going to say animation, and we're going to say duration, and that's going to be 4 seconds over here. So the animation should take 4 seconds. Then over here we have another property that we can use, is going to be animation, and we have iteration count. Now over here we can write the value, or right away they give us infinite, and this is how we can get this animation running. So we're going to set it to infinite, and you can see that already in our live preview everything is working. And now once I refresh the page, now my header comes over here from the left, then the button comes from the right, and over here this is going to be my link that I can click it, and over here once I click the link, then it's actually going to go to a lower page. Now over here what I've noticed that I missed actually hover effect because it was actually blue. So once I add the hover, then this should be actually black. And like I said, later on, once we add another sections, once you click the link, it's actually going to do a smooth scroll. So over here, you can see this is the original one. Once I click it, it actually smoothly scrolls down to the next section over here like this. So now that we're done with this section, the last thing that we would want to do is to add over here this ripple effect. So let's go ahead and let's actually add this ripple effect to our header. And for the ripple effect, we're going to go to Google and we're going to write jQuery ripple effect. And then over here, we're going to go to this GitHub site. So once we go over here, now once we're in the GitHub, the next thing that we would want to do is actually right away download. So I'm just going to check over here, download zip. And once we download the zip, the story should be the same as with the rest of a jQuery plugins. The first thing that we want to do is actually link it in our index.html, and then we're going to write some code in our JavaScript. And over here what they're saying is we need to have a selector, then add ripples, And over here, if we want to add some methods, we can do it this way. And over here, if there's more options, and there's actually more methods also. So let's go ahead and let's start doing it. So as we already did it, we already download everything, right? So once the download is done, we're going to go to downloads, and I'm just going to open up over here this folder. Now, once I have the folder open, what I'm looking for is a file, and the file name is going to be a jQuery ripples min.js. So here, this is the file that I would need. So I'm just going to drag this one out, and I can just minimize this window and just make sure that I'm placing it in the sushi. Now in the sushi, I would want to place it in the actual JavaScript folder. So here, if this is going to be my JS, then I'm just going to grab this jQuery ripples and get it to JS folder. So here, what I have is Phantasm, jQuery, and Bootstrap bundle. Now what I don't have is the actual JavaScript file. So what I'm going to say over here is I'm just going to close all this. And then the next thing that I would want to do is I'm just going to go over here, and all the way in the bottom of my index.html, I'm going to add another script. And over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be ripple. So this is going to be for ripples. And once I have this, then I'm going to say over here, this is going to be script. And over here for the source, we're going to have to use a JavaScript folder over here, and JavaScript folder jQuery ripples over here. Now, once I have this all the way in the bottom, so the next thing, I'm going to have my JavaScript file. So I'm going to say over here JS, and for the JS, again, we're going to use script. Then we're going to have a source, and for the source, we're going to use a JavaScript folder. Now over here, we don't have the file yet. So let's go back over here in our JavaScript folder, and let's create a new file. So I'm going to say over here that there's going to be new file, and this is going to be script, and we're going to say JS. Now, once we have this script JS, let's go back to index.html, and let's actually link it. So now I have my script JS, so now we need to add jQuery. Now for the jQuery, the first thing that we always need to do, we always need to have a jQuery running only once the actual document is ready, once the DOM has been loaded. So what we're going to add over here is we're going to add a document. So selector for the document, then we're going to have a method or function ready. And over here for the ready, what I would want is a function. And we're going to call this a anonymous function. So we're going to leave it without a name. And now we're ready to add our code. And since we already looked at what code we need to add, we can just go back over here, open up our browser, and we're just going to go back over here, and we're going to use this. We're going to say selector, ripples, and drop radius. Now over here, let's just copy and paste this. Once we're going to go back, copy and paste this, and let's just add some comments. So I'm going to say over here, ripples. Ripples. Now, what would be the selector? Well, the selector is going to be header. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be, first of all, I would need a quotation marks. Then I'm going to say header because I would want to select the header. Then I'm going to place a comma, and I'm actually going to add over here to this top section also. So over here, this is going to be class of info. Now, once I have the selector ready, now what I would want to do is change these ones. So actually add some values, drop radius, and over here, the next one, you can see over here, we have some options. So default would be 20, and this is going to be 0.03. So let's go ahead and let's actually change them. So over here, let's say that this is going to be a drop radius is going to be 25. And the next one, let's say that this is going to be 0.6 over here. Now, once I save this over here, now, once I'm actually scrolling over the page, you can see what happens. That actually our ripple effect is working over here like this. Now, let's go back over here to the bigger screen and let's see how this one works over here. Now over here, the same thing. As I'm hovering over, I have my ripple effect running. And now that we're done with the header section, now we're ready to move on and work on the next section. Now the next section we would need to build is technically navbar. See over here, this would be our next section that we would need to create. However, since we're going to be using a smooth scroll over here, and I actually want the scrolling to happen as we actually make it, what we're going to do over here, we're going to skip the navbar for now and actually add all the other sections first. And only then at the very end, we're going to go back to navbar and actually create and style the navbar. So the next section that we're actually going to be creating is going to be the special items section. And over here, we're going to have 6 images, and we're going to have some effects as I'm hovering over the image. First, the link is going to be appearing. You can see over here on the right, there's no link. However, as I'm hovering, there's a link over here. Then we're going to work with CSS outline. So as I'm hovering, there's going to be an outline. And also we're going to add a jQuery plugin. And the jQuery plugin is going to be for a lightbox. And the plugin name is going to be Magnific Pop-Up. So once I click on a link over here, you can see what happens. I actually have the gallery, and I can actually scroll through the gallery. And like I said, the first thing that we're going to create is this special items section. And for that, let's go ahead and right away look at a Magnific Pop-Up, our jQuery plugin. So we're going to over here to Google, and we're just going to write Magnific Pop-Up. Once we open up the link, first things first, let's go over the documentation, what we should need. And they say over here that we would need a jQuery, which we have. Then we would need a Magnific Pop-Up CSS and Magnific Pop-Up JS. So CSS file and JavaScript file. So let's go ahead and let's actually download it, and we can get that project on a GitHub. We're going to go over here, and then we're going to click clone or download. We're going to download the zip. Then we're going to go back to downloads over here. Once we have the downloads, let's get rid of the jQuery ripples effect. We don't need them anymore. So I'm just going to drag them to the trash. Then we're going to open up the zip. Once we open up the zip, we're going to have a folder. And in the folder, we're going to have a distribution. And in distribution, there's going to be jQuery Magnific Pop-Up JS and Magnific Pop-Up CSS. So let's go ahead and let's create a folder over here. And I'm just going to say that this is going to be Magnific. And we're going to call it Pop-Up over here. And once we have the folder, let's just grab these 2 files. So let's drag them over here, one, and over here the second one. Now once we have this, everything is set up. Let's just make sure that the actual CSS is in the folder. And once we have this, we can close this out and just grab over here this folder and drag it to Sushi. Now once we have it over here, we need to go to index.html in our Sushi. And now we need to add both of them, the JavaScript and the CSS. So we're here for the JavaScript. We're just going to say over here there's going to be a comment, and we're going to say over here Magnific, and we're going to say Pop-Up over here. Now once we have the comment, the next thing we're going to say is going to be script over here, and for the source we're going to have source, and then over here we're going to have Magnific Pop-Up, and over here this is going to be our JS file. Now once we have this, we're going to save this over here, and then we're going to go back all the way to the top. And after the Google fonts, we're actually going to add a comment of Magnific, and we're going to say Pop-Up again. And once we have this written, then the next thing that we want is again the link. And for the link, we're going to use a Magnific Pop-Up, and this is going to be CSS this time. Now let's save it. Now we have our Magnific Pop-Up. And the next thing that we would want to do is actually check it how we can use it. So I'm going to go back over here, and once all the files are downloaded, then they're saying over here how we can initialize the pop-up. Now the most basic way would be actually to have a document, and then we have document ready, and then we have a selector, and then once we choose the selector, then we add a Magnific Pop-Up over here. However, the difference would be that if we have a link, then this would be the class that we would want to select over here, and we would need to have an href path to the image. Now this would be the most basic way. Basically we have a link, and then once we click the link over here, then our pop-up, our picture opens. However, what we're going to do is we're going to have a group of elements, because as you can see over here, we're going to have a group of 6 images. Then once I have the image, I'm going to have a link, and once I click the link, then I have my gallery. So we're going to be choosing the second option over here from a group of elements with one parent. And just keep in mind that over here, there's a reason why we're adding this parent container later on, once we're going to be working in our HTML. And keep in mind that with these links that we're going to be creating, they need to actually match to the path of the image that you would want to actually select. So let's go ahead and let's start working on our index.html. Now, once we are in our index.html, you can see that this would be the end of our header section. So it's going to leave over here the room for navbar. So we're going to create a comments for the navbar. So this is going to be the navbar, and this is going to be end of navbar. And let's right away create a comment for a menu items. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be menu items over here. And over here, let's copy this line and copy and paste it. And over here, we're just going to say end of menu items. Now, once we have all these comments ready, the next thing that we would want to do is actually create a section. So we're going to be creating a section element with a few classes. And the first class is going to be padding top bottom. And the next is not going to be actually a class, it's going to be an ID. And we're just going to say that this is going to be special. And we're going to say items. So that's going to be ID. And like I said, the ID is going to match over here the target of this link. So special items. And over here, this is going to be special items. Now, what we're going to have over here in this section, the first thing that we would want to do is actually create a div with the class of container. And in the container, we would want to add a margin, top, bottom 5. So largest margin possible. Then the next thing that we would want to do is actually create a row. And we're going to have a div with the class of row over here. But we're also going to add a class that, if you remember, for Magnific Pop-Up, they were using parent container. Now you can call your class however you would want. And the only reason why I'm using this class is because in documentation, it's the same class. So somebody wouldn't get confused why I'm adding this class and why we're targeting the class. That's why I'm adding the same class as is going to be used in the actual documentation. Now, once we have this row parent container, the next thing that we would want is actually menu item. So I'm going to say over here that there's going to be a class of menu, and we're going to say item. So that's going to be our first picture over here. Now, in here, we're going to have actually a div with a class of column 10. And then we're going to say MX auto over here. And the reason for that is for the smaller screens, what I would want to do is actually place this image in the center. However, I wouldn't want it to span it all the way. This is the reason why for the smaller screen and from the extra small screen all the way up, what I would want is a column 10 and MX auto. Now also, if you noticed, we had a couple of images. So over here for a small screen, I would want them to span a half the screen. So here I'm just going to say column small 6 over here like this. Then after that, what I would want is column large 4. So for the large screens, they're going to be taking third of the screen. And then what I'm going to say is for a small screen over here, I'm going to have a class margin top bottom 3. And the reason for this class is that once they're going to be on extra small screen, you would want some distance in between them. And over here, once we have the column ready, now we would want a div with item container over here like this. So we're going to say there's going to be item container div. Within the item container div, we're actually going to place a image. So I'm going to say over here image, and for the source, we're going to have images, and we're going to start with menu item number 1. So I'm going to say over here menu item number 1. Now, as you can see that now the image is spanning all across the screen, and we need to scroll. And in order to change that, we just need to add a few classes. And over here, we're going to say that there's going to be a class. And for the class, what we would want to add is image fluid first. So I'm going to say image, and we're going to say fluid. Then we're going to create some space. So now you see how everything fits. And like I said, the reason for this column 10 is because I don't want it to be spanning all across. over here like this, right? So if I delete it, you see how big it is. This is the reason why I'm adding column 10. So then it gets smaller in extra small screen. And I also place it right away in the center. And then later on, once I get to the small screen and the large screen, then I'm already using the Bootstrap classes, how I would want them to line up. Now, after the fluid class, we're going to have image, and we're going to say thumbnail over here. So we're going to add these borders over here all around. And then also we're going to have item image, and the item image is going to be our own class that we're going to style later. And over here for alternative, we can just write that there's going to be a menu item over here. Now, once we have our first picture over here, the next thing that I would want to do is actually have a link that later on we're going to style it in the center. But for now, we're just going to place it underneath the image. So I'm going to say over here A, and we're going to use the tab and href. Now we would need to use the same that we're using for the source over here. So if this would be image 1, this actually needs to match exactly. So I'm just going to copy and paste this just so we don't make any mistakes. So now when I have this menu item number 1 over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be menu item over here. And next, what I would want to do is actually include this in heading 1. So actually I wrote it over here as a text. What I would want to do actually over here, I'm just going to say this is going to be heading 1, and heading 1 is going to have a few classes. So I'm going to say class text, first of all, uppercase, and let's do the menu item, the actual text that we would want. Then after the text uppercase, what we would want is a text center class, and then we would want to have our own class. So this is going to be item link, and then we're going to have a padding left and right 3 over here. So there's going to be a little bit of padding. Now, once we have this set up, we can actually check it out how it looks without a owl color cell. So let's go back over here and let's open up our main screen over here. And if I'm going to go back down over here, you can see that actually I didn't save the index. That's why nothing is showing. Now, once I save this over here and once I refresh, now if we scroll down and I click it over here, you can see that it actually opens up the image. Now, it doesn't open the way we want it actually to open, but it does open. So our link is working correctly. So that's our first step. Then the next thing that I would want to do is go back to jQuery and actually add over here this code. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm just going to copy and paste this, and we're going to go back to the script over here like this. And underneath the ripples, I'm just going to say over here that this is going to be a magnific, and we're going to say pop-up. Now, once we have this, we're going to copy and paste this, and we can actually leave the comments for now. Let's just save this. Let's go back over here to a, let's say not menu item, but to the main page. Again, let's refresh over here. Let's click it. And now I can see that there is already a difference how it's actually appearing. And now we know that our magnific pop-up is working. So let's go back over here and let's add actually a few more items so we can tell for sure. So if we're going to go back over here and we're going to go to index.html, we're going to select this menu item. And now we just need to add, let's say, one more. So let's see where our div over here ends. And let's just create a little bit more room over here just so we're copying and pasting the right things. And over here, I'm just going to copy and paste it one more time. And here, let's change it to menu item over here too. And over here, the same thing we're going to do with an image. We're just going to change it over here to the second image. Now, once we have it, again, I'm going to save it over here. And I'm going to go back over here to the magnific pop-up. And actually, we have an option where we have the gallery. So what happens is not only we have one image, but we have the gallery of images where we can actually scroll through those images. Now, how do we get the gallery of images? We're going to go back here and we're going to have a script.js. And you see over here that this is going to be a JavaScript object. So what do we do over here? We just place a comment. And then we're going to say over here that there's going to be a gallery. And for the gallery, we're going to say that this is going to be equal to. And what we're going to say is that this is going to be enabled. And we're just going to say true over here. So once we are going to write over here true, then what we will need to do is just save this over here like this. And if I'm going to go back to my sushi project, and again, we're going to refresh. Now you can see that I have 2 items. However, once I open it up over here, you can see what we have so far. So now we actually have a gallery of 2 images over here working. And like I said, the main code that we needed over here was this one, where we actually have a selector. Then this would be magnific pop-up. And over here, we write delegate and type. Now, the next thing, if we want to look at more options over here, we can actually scroll down, and this is where we can actually find the gallery if we want. And obviously, gallery is not the only thing that we are interested. There's other things that we can actually add. However, for now, we're just going to add a gallery over here. And what we would need to do over here, once we have our JS running, then we're going to go back to index.html. And over here, we're just going to copy and paste this 4 more times. So we're going to, again, check it out where our div ends over here. And let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have 4 of them. And now what I would want to do is just change these numbers. So if this one is 3, then the image item is also going to be 3. This is going to be 4. And this is going to be image 4. Then this is going to be a 5. So this is going to be our 5 image. And over here, this is going to be number 6. So now once we have 6 of them, let's just save it. Let's see how it looks like over here on our main screen. So I refresh. Now you can see that I have 6 images over here working. Now what I would want to do is over here, maybe fix it. You see over here, I have 4 images and over here I have 3. So let's see where I went wrong. So over here, let's do instead of large 3, let's do large 4. So let's change these values in all of them. Now let's go back. Then this is going to be also 4. This is going to be also 4. This is going to be 4. And the last one over here is going to be also 4. So now we save this. We're going to go back over here. And now you can see that we have 3 images over here and 3 images over here. And as I actually minimize the screen, now we're going to go to the 2 images. And over here, we're going to go to the 1 image over here. But this 1 image is not going to be full size. It's actually going to be spanning only 10 columns over here. So now once we're done with adding HTML and actually adding already magnific pop-up, or magnific pop-up is working, the next thing that we would want to do is we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to add a styling. So as I'm hovering, we're going to add all these hover effects. So let's go to main CSS and let's start styling the special items section over here. And the first thing that we would want to do is to create a comment that this is going to be a menu items over here. So let's do a hashtags and let's say menu items over here. And once we have the menu items comment, now we can actually start applying the rules and the properties and the values. Now, the first thing that I actually would want to do is add a image for the whole body. So you see over here in our original document, we have a image all the way to the whole body. And as I keep scrolling, you can see that the image stays over here. So we're going to go back over here and we'll find where is the image, where is the body selector over here. And once we have the body, then let's say that this is going to be a background and the background is going to be URL. And for the URL, again, we're going to place 2 dots over here. And then we're going to say images. And this is going to be body background image over here like this. And if we remember that we had properties and the values for the background image, now we're going to do a shortcut. And over here, we're going to write center. So that's going to be the position. Then we're going to say cover. That's going to be the size. And then we're going to say fixed, which is going to be for background attachment. And then we're going to say no repeat, which is going to be for background repeat. And we're just going to say no repeat over here. Now, as you can see over here that we need to start with a position. Then the next thing that we would need to write is the actual size. And in between them, we would need to place this /. And after that, we can actually place them however we would want. So here, we're just going to say fixed, and this is going to be a repeat. So you can see that we're actually doing exactly the same thing. This is just going to be a CSS shortcut. Now, also don't ask me why I chose over here this Merry Christmas. This obviously probably wouldn't go with the sushi, but I just like the image. I like the neon lights over here. So that's the only reason why I got it. Now, if you feel offended by this or anything like that, you can obviously choose a different image. Now, once we have placed the image as a background, next thing that we would want to do is actually start with an item container. And if we remember, the item container was the actual container that was a parent container for the image and for the link for both of them. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to say over here item, and we're going to say container. And I'm just going to add the properties. And right away, we're going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment right after that, what that property is going to be used for. So over here, we're going to say a position, and we're going to say relative. And we're going to say over here in the comment that this is going to be for the link, And the reason for this is that we're going to place again the link in the center using a CSS position absolute, and we need the parent container to have position relative. So this is going to be for the link. Then the next thing that we would want to do is have a property overflow, and we're going to say hidden. And the reason for this property and this value is that once we're going to be hovering over the images, we would want this zoom in effect over here. As I'm hovering over the images, you see over here that it's actually zooming in. And we need to set the parent container overflow hidden so the images wouldn't overflow. Then after that, what I would want is a background. So I'm going to say over here background, and we're going to say linear gradient. And over here, what we're doing is as I'm hovering over the image is going to have a opacity of 0.5. So it's going to become more transparent. And we're going to set a black background just to get this effect. So I'm going to say over here gradient. And for linear gradient, we're going to say use again RGBA. And you know what? We can actually skip RGBA. We can just use RGB, which is going to be 0, 0, 0. Right? So instead of RGBA would be 4 values over here, we need only 3. So what I'm saying is I would want just a black background color as a overlay. See over here, now you can see the color. Now once I'm going to place this link with an absolute positioning, you're not going to be able to see this. But for now, you can see where's our black color. Now once we have this over here, the next thing that I would want to do is to have a transition, because I'm going to be hovering over the container and then the changes are going to be happening. So I'm going to say over here transition, and transition is going to be all. So for all the properties, I'm going to say 2 seconds and ease over here. Now, once we're done with an item container, now we want something to happen with an image. So I'm going to say over here item and image, and that's the class that we added actually to the image. So I'm going to say over here again that there's going to be transition, and I'm going to say transition all, and again we're going to do, let's say 2 seconds, and let's say ease over here, ease. Now once we have all this, now we would actually want the actual changes to happen. So first things first, what I'm going to say over here is as I'm hovering item container. So as I'm hovering over the container, what should happen? So as I'm hovering the item image, see over here, this class, it should have some changes. And over here, I'm going to say this class should be affected. How? And I'm going to say first that there's going to be a transform over here, and transform, we're going to say over here scale, and we're going to say 1.2. So as I'm going to be hovering over the container, the changes on the image are also going to take 2 seconds, and it's going to be scaling. So I'm going to go back over here, and you see what happens. You see how it is actually scaling as I'm hovering over the image. Now, like I said, if we wouldn't have overflow hidden, let's comment this out, see what happens. The image actually gets bigger, and this is not what we want. We actually want to have a zoom in effect. That's why we have overflow hidden. So let me uncomment this, and now I can see how it works. So now the image is actually zooming in, but we have this transition, so it takes 2 seconds, over 2 seconds. Then after that, what I would want is also to have an opacity of the image. I'm going to say 0.5 over here like this. So 0.5. Again, we save this over here. We're going to go back over here. Now I can see that it actually becomes darker. And that is being done with an opacity of 0.5 and this black background over here. the linear gradient one. Now, once we have this, now I would want to have a link. So over here, this link, I would want to actually place it in the center. So let's create again more space over here. And like I said, the same thing is like we did in the header. So I'm going to say over here item, and we're going to write link. And item link, the first things first, we're going to have position absolute. Now again, what we need to make sure is for this item container, the container to have the position relative, because then we can place it relatively to the parent container, not to some other element in the document. And over here, we're going to say top, and we're going to say 50% over here, and we're going to say left 50%. So we're placing it in the center. However, the problem is it's not really in the center because it actually has its own dimensions. So what we need to do is have a transform, and we're going to say translate. And instead of x and y, we just use both of them. So I'm going to say first value is going to be for the x. See over here, negative 50% and negative 50% y value. So negative 50% y direction. So you see what happens. It moves 50% of the actual item x direction and 50% over here. Now, once we have this, the next thing that we would want to do is to have a color. And for the color, we're going to use this red color. So let's go back over here and let's find where was our closest color. Over here, the one we were using. And we're just going to copy and paste this and scroll over here and paste it over here. Now, once we have the color, then we're going to have a font size. And we're going to say that font size is going to be 2 REMs. Then after that, we would want a border top and border bottom. So I'm going to say border top, and over here we're going to say 3 pixels solid, and over here again we're going to use the same thing. We're going to use the red color. Then for the border bottom, we're going to do the same thing. So we're just going to copy and paste this, start a new line over here, and then we're going to say border bottom over here like this. Now once we have the border bottom, then we also would want to add transition for the actual link. So we're doing the same thing again. The link is going to change the color as we're hovering over the link. However, this should take place over a certain amount of time. So I'm going to say over here transition, and this is going to be again 2 seconds, ease, and let's say all, because we would want all the properties. So once we have this, the next thing that I would want to do is actually change this, because you can see over here that there's a wrong syntax. I actually need all, and then 2 seconds, and now we have ease over here like this. Now once I have this, then next thing that I would want to do is actually to get rid of the opacity. So as I'm hovering, you can see over here, as I'm hovering over the parent container, only then the link becomes visible over here. So we're going to say over here that there's going to be opacity, and we're going to say 0. So the link disappears over here. Now we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say as I'm hovering item container. So as I'm hovering over the container, I'm going to say hover, and then I'm going to say item, I'm going to say link. So that's the class again we're selecting. And what should happen? We're going to say over here opacity, and we're going to say 1. So let's go back over here, see what happens. So now as I'm hovering, actually now I can see this link over here. Now let's comment this out for now, just so we can see as we're styling. And let's actually add the style as we're hovering over the link. So let's go back over here, and I'm going to say over here item and link, and over here hover over here. Now once I hover over the link, what should happen? First I'm going to say a color, and the color is going to be this white one. So I'm going to say over here C and 9C, and then we'll have 1AC over here like this. Then after that, we're going to have a border, and again for the border we're going to do the same thing, 3 pixels solid, and we're going to say over here the same thing, and this is going to be the color. So I'm going to copy and paste this over here and copy and paste it over here. Then after that, we're going to have the same background. So I'm going to say the background is going to be over here like this too. And then we're going to have the actual color, and color is going to be hashtag 242424. Now, once I have this done, now we only need to add one last thing. right? And now we can actually uncomment this one out. So only as I'm hovering, now my link is showing. However, as I hover the link changes the color. I click over here, and now I have my gallery. Now, the last thing that I would want to do is add this outline. So as I'm hovering the actual container, there's an outline that's showing. So we're going to go back over here, and normally we should add it over here, attach it to the actual container. Now, since I just want to make sure that you understand that what we're doing, I'm just going to place it again separately. So I'm going to say over here, item, and we're going to say container, and we're going to say hover. And what should happen as I'm hovering over the actual container? I'm going to say over here outline, and we're going to say outline is going to be 10 pixels, solid, and let's use again this red color. So we're going to go back over here, copy and paste the color, and then we're going to say that there's going to be offset for the outline. And that's the good thing of using the outline, that we can use actually offset. See over here, we have outline offset. And if we, let's say, place it over here, 0.rem, see what happens? There's an actual outline as I'm hovering. See over here, it actually gets bigger. Now, we can also do it this way. We can actually set it to negative. So we're going to go back over here, and you can see that the outline is actually goes inside. This is also an option. It just really depends what is the value, is it negative or positive. And obviously we can set it how big we would want. So let's say over here, I would want 1.8. You see over here, this would be my outline. So this is also an option that you can use. And we're going to say over here, this is going to be 0.8 over here. So now we save this one over here, and we're going to go back to the file that we were working on. We're going to refresh, and now we have everything going on. We have our menu item over here, and then we have all our items, and now we have the outline, and we click over here, and now we have our gallery. So now that we're done with this section, we're ready to move on to next section. And the next section we're going to be building is going to be the menu section, where we're going to have a menu with the menu items. And in the background, we're going to have a background image with the white overlay. So let's go to our text editor and let's start working. So we're going to go back over here to the index.html. We're going to find where is the last section. And like always, first things first, we're going to create comments. And over here, we're going to say menu section over here, copy and paste the line over here like this. And this is not what I wanted. So let's go ahead and get the line, copy and paste this. And over here, we're going to say end of menu section. Then after that, what we would want is to have a section over here with an ID, and the ID is going to be menu. After that, we would want a few classes, padding top bottom 5 and margin top bottom also 5. After that, we're going to place a container over here, and we're going to have a container, and in the container, we're going to have a row. So two divs, one with the class of container and the other one with the class of row. And after that, we're going to have two columns over here, medium size 6. So starting from the medium screen, this is going to take up to half the screen. Now, once I have these two columns, then I need to start placing these items over here. So this is going to be the title. Then I'm going to have two items. Then again, we're going to have a title and another two items. So let's go over here and let's start doing this. So over here, we can just write that this is going to be the end of, let's say, first column over here. And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be a title. So I'm going to say over here title. And again, let's select the row, copy and paste the row, and let's just write end of title. Now over here in a title, what we would want? Well, first what we would want is a row, and then we're going to have a column over here like this. And within a column, we're actually going to have a heading 1 with a primary color. That's the red color that we actually added to the whole text. And after that, we'll want a text, and we're going to say uppercase. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be a soups. So I'm going to write over here soups. Now, once I have my title, the next thing that I would want is actually item. So I'm going to write over here that this is going to be single item over here. And again, let's select the row, copy and paste this, and just say end of single item over here like this. And once I have the single item, then I'm going to create a div. However, I just want to show you that again, we're going to set this div, this one single item div, as a FLEXBOX parent container. So this text on one side is going to be child of that parent container, FLEXBOX parent container, and this is going to be the other child. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to say that this is going to be div with single item. Then it's also going to have a FLEXBOX property. So we're going to say dflex, and we're going to say justify content, and we're going to say between over here. And also what we're going to do is for the smaller screen, we'll have margin top bottom 3 and padding 3 over here. So once we have this, we're going to press tab, and now we have our div. Now in the div, what we would want is to create two children. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be single item, and we're going to say text. And also what we would want is another div, and this is going to be a single item over here, and we're going to say price. So this is going to be another div that we're creating. Now for the price div, you can see over here that we're going to use the fact that since these are FLEXBOX parent children, we can use a self-align property. You see how it is all aligned over here in the bottom? Well, what we're going to do over here is we're going to add a class. We're going to say align items over here, or align self, align self, and we're going to say end over here. So this is how we can place this in the bottom. And over here inside this div, what we're going to have is a heading 1. This is going to be text, uppercase class, and also text, and we're going to say dark. Now once we have this over here, we're just going to write that this is going to be $10 over here. So this is going to be the item. Now once we have the element inside the second child, now let's place elements over here. And what we're going to say over here, this is going to be heading 2. This is going to be text, uppercase, and also text, dark. And also over here, we're going to write that this is going to be soup. Now once we have this, we press tab, and after heading 2, we're going to write heading 4. And for the heading 4, we're going to write over here that this is going to be text, muted. And over here, we're going to have a text inside. So I'm going to say lorem, and let's say that this is going to be 5. Now once we have this over here, then the next thing that I would want to do is get the single item over here, and we're just going to copy and paste this. So I'm going to copy and paste this. However, I'm just going to do a few things differently. So first of all, what I would want to do is add over here for the single item dflex all the way at the end. We're going to add a class of special over here. And also what we would want to do, if we have over here 2 of these children, I'm going to add over here, you see over here this text, this chef's collection. Now we're going to be using a absolute positioning to actually place them on the top. So for now, it's actually going to mess with our FLEXBOX children, because obviously now we're going to have 3 items. But again, don't worry, we're going to use the absolute positioning, and then we're going to place them over here on the top. So I'm going to say over here heading 3, and this is going to be special over here text, and then we're going to say text capitalize over here. And over here we're going to say chef, and we're going to say selection over here. Now once we have this, now we're ready to roll and actually copy the whole thing. So I'm going to grab over here, I'm going to look where this div first of all ends over here, and the single item. And then we're going to do over here, we're going to grab everything from the title, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom where the single item ends over here. So we're going to get this, and we're going to copy and paste this over here like this. And now once we have 4 of them, we just need to make some changes. And over here, what we would need to do is we would need to change it to sushi over here. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be sushi. So I'm going to select both of them, and we're going to say sushi. And after that, what we would want, and you can see over here that this is going to be sushi, and also we're going to say over here sushi, and now we would need over here another sushi. So we're going to say over here sushi, Now, once we have this over here, now we're actually ready to copy and paste the whole column. So if we're going to go back over here and we're going to find where it is our column. Now what I would want to do is select the whole thing, and we're going to select all this, and we're actually going to copy and paste this in the another column. So I'm going to scroll down all the way down here. We're going to grab this over here, and we're going to go back inside this column, and we're just going to copy and paste this. Now once we have this, then again we would want to change a few titles over here, and we would want to change the location of the class of special. So first we're going to say over here that this is going to be, and this is going to be sashimi. So we're going to say over here sashimi, and over here also we're going to change this sushimi, and also this is going to be sashimi. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to say sashimi. Also, what I would want to do is, you see over here this class of special. See over here how this location is the second one, and over here this is the first one. So what I'm going to say over here, I'm going to grab this single item over here like this. I'm going to grab where's the end of single item. I'm going to cut it out. Then we're going to go to the top, find where is the single item, and over here copy and paste this. And also we're going to do the same thing over here. Now for this one, what I would want to do is to change this around and say that this is going to be roles, and this is going to be roll, and this is also going to be roll. Over here like this. So I'm going to say roll. Then again, we're going to grab the single item over here, cut it out, and then we're going to go back up here, and then we're going to say where is the single item. We're going to copy and paste this. So now I'm going to save this. We're going to go back over here to our recording. We're going to refresh, and then we'll check it out. What do we have? So this is what we have so far. Now let's go to CSS and let's actually style this over here. So we're going to go back over here. This is going to be our main CSS. Here we're going to make some comments, and we're going to say menu. This is also going to be menu over here. And now we're going to scroll it down over here like this. And then we're going to say that this, we would want to select menu over here, and we would want to add the background. So we're going to say over here background, and over here we're going to say URL. And for the background, we're going to have two dots over here, and then we're going to have images. And this wasn't the body image that we wanted. We actually wanted a banner over here like this. And right away, we're going to do the center, which is going to place it in the center. Then we're going to do cover, which is going to make sure that it always covers it. Then we're going to have a fixed to get a parallax effect. And then we're going to say no repeat over here. So we're going to say no repeat over here like this. Now, once we have this, let's add this white overlay. So like always, we're going to say gradient over here, and linear. So we need to have actually linear and gradient. Now for the linear gradient, we're going to have over here, and we're going to place a comma. And over here inside, we're going to say RGBA. This is going to be white color. So we're going to have 255. 255 and 255. And also what we're going to have is not only 255, we're going to have 0.7 over here. And then we're going to have another RGBA, and this is going to be another one of those 255, 255, comma 255 over here. And then we're going to have again 0.7. So this is what we have so far. We have the image, and over here we have the white overlay. Now, next thing that we would want is class of special over here, and what we would want is a border, 3 pixels, and we're going to say solid over here, and let's say hashtag D33, and then we're going to say 25F over here like this. And after that, we're going to say position, and we need to use position relative. And the reason again for this position relative is because for the text that we have in a special class, we actually would want to use a absolute positioning. So we need to set the parent container as a position relative. So here, let's go to the special text. I'm going to say special, and we're going to say text, special, or your text. That's going to be the class that we're selecting. And over here, we're going to write like this. We're going to say position. We'll say absolute So first we place them over here like this. Then we're going to say top, and we're going to say 0 over here all the way to the top. Right, we're going to say over here 10%. Over here like this, 10%. So they are 10% from the right. And after that, what we would want is a background, and let's add a red background. So we're going to say over here D33, and then this is going to be 25F over here. And also we're going to add some padding. So we're going to add padding of 0, top, bottom 0, and left and right we're going to have 0.rems. So left and right, we'll want to add a little bit of padding. And now once I save this over here, let's refresh, and this is what we have. So now we have the menu. So there's going to be menu items over here, and once the screen size gets smaller over here like this, you can see that now it goes to the 1 size over here like this. So once we're done with this section, we're ready to move on to our next section. The next section we're going to be building is going to be about us section. So over here we're going to have a title. Then over here this is going to be paragraph. This is going to be the button. And if it looks familiar, it is, because we're using the same button that we created in the header. And over here, these are going to be the images. And what we're going to do with these images is, as I'm hovering over the image, not only it gets bigger, not only it gets a outline, also what you can see over here, that rest of the images actually have a lower opacity. So over here, as I'm hovering over this image, the rest of the images get lower opacity. And over here, this one is actually also doing a little bit of transformation. So let's go ahead and let's actually do this. So over here, what we would want is index.html again. So we're going to start over here in the index.html. And we're going to start, as always, by creating 2 comments. And over here, the comments that we're going to create is that this is going to be an about section over here. So we're going to have an about section, and then we're going to have over here a class. So let's say over here that this is going to be a about, and let's select the whole thing over here. Select the whole line, copy and paste, and end of about, end of about. Then we're going to create over here a section over here with an ID about. And then we're going to have a class of padding top bottom 5 over here like this. Now, once we have this section over here, the next thing that I would want is to create a container. Then within the container, we're going to place a row right away. And then we're going to have a columns. And we're going to have 2 columns. So we're going to say column, medium over here. And we're going to say 6 over here like this. And then we're also going to have a top bottom margin is going to be 4 over here like this. And within this div, we're going to have over here first a heading 1, and we're going to say that this is going to be a class over here of text over here, uppercase. Then we're going to say display 3. That's going to be the size over here. And over here we're going to write that this is going to be about us over here. Then after that we have a heading 2. So we're going to say heading 2, and this is going to be text muted over here. And this is going to be, let's say, 15 words. So we're going to say over here, lorem, and we're going to say 15. Now, once we have this, then what we need to do over here is press tab again, and now we have our 15 words. And last but not least, now what I would want is a button. So I'm going to say link over here with the class of btn, with the class of main btn. And over here, we're going to have a margin top bottom 4, and we're going to have a text capitalize. So text capitalize lies over here. So let me paste this, and over here we're going to write learn over here, learn more. Again, we're going to press tab, and now we have over here our button, and you can see that it's right away styled because we used the class that we created before. Now, once we're done with this div over here, let's create another column over here. So we're going to say column medium, and we're going to say over here 6, but then we're going to add some classes of our own. So first, what we're going to say is that there's going to be a class of about pictures. So this is going to be the class that we're going to use for styling. Then also we're going to have a margin top bottom 4. But also what we're going to add is once we go to the smaller screen, you see over here, actually pictures disappear. There's only this text over here. And what we would want to do is we would just want to add these Bootstrap classes that actually hide the pictures on the smaller screens over here. So they only appear starting from this screen. So what we're going to say over here that this column is going to be D none. So it's going to be display none. However, starting from the large screen, this is going to be the block over here like this. Now, once we press the tab, now we can start placing these images. And over here, what I would want to do is place 4 images. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be, or I'm sorry, 5. I'm going to say image over here, and the class is going to be image1. Then we're going to say image, and we're going to say thumbnail over here. And then we're also going to add another class of about image over here. And as you can see over here, this is going to be the only class that's from Bootstrap. Everything else, image1 and about image, we're going to be styling ourselves. Now, once we have this over here, let's press tab. And for the source, we're going to have a image over here. And for the images, what we're going to use, again, we're going to use menu items. So I'm going to say over here, and this is going to be the menu item over here. Now, once I have this, the menu item, then the next thing that I would want to do is I would want to place some alternative. So I'm going to say this is going to be the menu. And now let's go ahead and let's actually copy and paste this. So what we would want to do is to have this one image. And let's say we're going to copy and paste this 4 times. So we would, in total, we would need 5 of them. So here we're going to change, over here we're going to change, and over here we're going to change. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what we would want to do over here is we would want to change these class names together with a actual class with an image that we're getting. So if this is going to be 3, then also this needs to be 3. The class needs to be 3. If the image is 4, this also needs to be 4. And if this image is going to be 5, then the class needs to be 5. And this is it for the HTML. Now we're ready to go and start styling these images in CSS. And the first thing that we would want to do with CSS is we're going to set that about pictures over here. This whole div is going to be relative. Because again, what we're going to do over here is we're going to use the absolute positioning to place these images like this over here. This is going to be the absolute positioning. So let's go back over here and let's create a comment over here like this. And we're going to say that this is going to be about, and this is going to be another hashtag over here. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be about pictures. So we're going to write a class, an about, and we're going to say pictures. So this is the class for the whole column. And over here, we're going to say very simple, we're going to say position relative. Then the next thing, remember, we had an about image class that we added to every image. And the reason for that is because I would want to do styling right away. So I'm going to say for all of them, position is going to be absolute. Width is going to be 150 pixels over here. Then we're going to say that there's going to be transition. And the transition is because we're going to be changing some kind of state. And I would want that change to happen over some period of time. So I'm going to say all 2 seconds, and we're going to say ease over here like this. And over here, we're going to just set for all of them opacity 0.9 over here like this. So let's save this and let's look at where is our recording, what's happening over here so far. So over here, you can see that we have the images, and since they all are using the absolute positioning, now you can see only one of them. But in reality, the rest of them are underneath over here. So what we're going to do over here, since we had those separate classes over here, we can actually start styling them over here. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say that there's going to be class image1 over here, and I'm just going to say left, and this is going to be 0% over here, and then we're going to say top is also going to be 0% over here like this. So again, we're placing it as a default right now anyway. So this is going to be also 0 over here like this. And I'm not going to be switching back and forth all the time in between the screens. I'm just going to show you the second one, and the 3, 4, 5, we're just going to style it over here, and then we're going to look at it at the end. But for the second one, we have the image number 2, and then we're going to say left 20% over here, top we're going to say 20% over here like this, and z index we're going to set it as 10 over here like this. So I'm going to save this over here, and if we're going to refresh over here, now you can see that I have actually my second image. You see over here where it is actually located. Then, like I said, let's add 3, 4, 5, and then at the end we're just going to look at how everything works. So what we can do over here is we can just copy and paste this. First time, then second time, and then third time. Now over here we're going to change this class to image 3. This we're going to change to image 4, and this is going to be image 5. Now for the image 3, we're going to change this to position 40% from the left, and from the top we're going to say 45 over here like this. Now the z index for this guy, we're going to leave it at 20. So this is going to be overlaying the second one. And for the fourth one, we're going to have a left of 40% over here, and the top is going to be 0 again over here. So let's say this is going to be 40, this is going to be 0, this we're going to delete over here. There's going to be no z index. And for the 5, we're going to say left is going to be 0, top is going to be 45, and again we're going to just delete the z index. So let's save over here, and let's see what we have so far. And as you can see over here, we're using the z index. If this one was 0, then this was 10, which actually places this image on top of this guy and this guy. However, for this one we used z index of 20, which actually is placed on top of this one. So now that we have placed them, and we can actually use a z index to actually place them on top of each other and use the absolute positioning to actually place them in the actual location. Let's go over here and let's just add these hover effects. So first what I would want is I would want to say about image. That's the class that we added. And as we're hovering about this class, what should happen? Well, first what I would want is a outline, and I'm just going to say 10 pixels solid. And again, we're going to use the red color. So I'm going to say D33 over here, and then it's going to be 25F over here. Then after that, we're going to have a outline offset that we already used before, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be 0.8 REMs over here like this. Then after that, we also would want a transform, and I'm going to say over here like this. Then this is going to transform, and first we're going to scale, so the image is going to get bigger. Then what we would want is a rotate. So we're going to say over here rotate, and we're going to rotate 20 degrees over here like this. And after that, also as I'm hovering, the z index for the image that we're hovering should be bigger than the biggest one we have so far. The biggest one we have so far is 20. So this one we can just say that this is going to be 30. And opacity for the image as we're hovering should be 1 over here like this. Now let's save this. Let's just check it out what we have so far. So as I'm hovering the image, remember we had a transition. So this is going to take place over 2 seconds. So as I'm hovering, you see the outline. You see that it actually scales. And you see also over here that it actually transforms a little bit. So we use a rotation. Then the last thing that I would want to do is set for the rest of the images actually lower opacity. So what I would want to say over here is about pictures. So as I'm hovering over here, pictures, as I'm hovering over this whole column, the whole column, not the single picture, but the whole column, what I would want is as I'm hovering, the images that I'm not actually hovering over. So I'm going to say image over here, about image over here, and not and hover. So the images that I'm not hovering over. So over here like this. What should happen? Well, the actually opacity should be 0.5. So I'm going to say opacity 0.5. So let's see how it works. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to refresh. And you see over here, as I'm going over the column, over here, the whole column, actually the images that I'm not hovering over lose the opacity. The opacity becomes 0.5. However, as I'm hovering over the actual image, the opacity goes to 1. And like I said, there's going to be an outline and there's going to be a rotation transformation. And this is how we can work on this section. And now we're ready to move on to our next section. Now the next section we're going to be building is going to be review section, where we're going to be using a Bootstrap carousel. So over here, this would be a customer photo, customer name, and this would be over here his review. And we're going to use a CSS for this effect. Again, we're going to have slanted edges over here like this. So let's go ahead and let's start working on this section. So we're going to go back over here to our index.html. And over here, the first thing that I would want to do is we're going to create again the comments. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be a reviews over here. And over here, we're going to select the line over here, copy and paste this, and we're just going to write end of reviews. Now, once we have the reviews ready, then what we would want is to create a section over here section. And in the section, we would want an ID of reviews over here. And then we're going to have a class of padding top bottom 5. Now, once we have this section, then we would need to place a Bootstrap carousel. So I'm going to say over here, there's going to be a div over here. And I'm just going to say that this carousel is going to have an ID. So we're going to have a div with an ID. And let's say that this is going to be a slider over here like this. So this is going to be our slider. Then after that, we would need a carousel over here, carousel. And we would need another class of slide over here. And then we would need another attribute, which would be data. And we're going to say ride over here, data ride. And over here, we're just going to place a carousel over here. Then once we have the actual carousel, next thing that I would want to do is to actually have a carousel inner. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to write that there's going to be a div with the class of carousel inner. So carousel over here, and we're going to say inner over here like this. Now, once we have this class, this div with the class, then after that, we would want some items. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be carousel and item. And we actually need to place this within that div. So let's just grab this. Let's cut it out. And over here within this div, let's copy and paste this over here. Now for the carousel item, what we would want is a div with the same class. So carousel, and over here we're going to say item. Now also, since this is going to be our first item, we need to add a class of active over here. Now, once I have the carousel item, the next thing that I would want to do actually is to look where this carousel over here ends, and if this was the carousel inner. Now, after the carousel inner, I actually would want to place a carousel controls. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be a carousel, and we're going to say controls over here. Now, once we have this comment, then we're going to place a link with a class of carousel and control class, and we're going to say prev. So that's going to stand for previous. And over here for the href, what we would need is we would need the same target as this ID. So over here, I'm just going to say hashtag slider over here like this. Now, after that, also we would want is a role, and we're going to say role, and we're going to use a role of button over here like this. Then also what we would want is a data, and we're going to say slide over here, and we're going to say previous over here like this, previous. Now, within this link, we would want to actually place the span. So I'm going to say span over here, and this is going to be carousel, and control and previous and icon. So this is going to be our class. I'm going to press tab over here, and now we have our icon over here. And what we would want to do over here, we would want to copy and paste this, and now we just need to change some classes around. So if this was previous, this needs to be next over here. Then also the data slide needs to be next, and also a span needs to have, instead of previous, it needs to have next over here like this. So now we have both of controls ready. Now we're going to go back. Where's our cursor item? And let's create our item over here. So we're going to start with the first one, with the one that's active. And over here within, we're going to place a container. Within the container, we're going to place actually a row over here like this. And within the row, we're going to have a column. And we're going to say that this is going to be a div with a class of large. And over here, we're going to say 10. So what I'm saying over here is that it should be spanning all the time, all 12 columns. However, once it reaches large screen, this should actually go to 10 columns. And also I would want it to be in the center. So I'm going to say MX auto. And also, if you notice over here, we're going to use a FLEXBOX again. So the images over here are going to be on one side, and over here text is going to be on the other side. So again, we're going to say this is going to be the flex, and then we're going to say justify content, and we're going to say between over here, and then we're going to add the class of review item. So this is going to be our own class, and then we'll have padding tab bottom 3 over here. Now once we have this over here, we're going to press tab, and now within this div, what we would want is we would first want to have an image. So I'm going to say that first is going to be the image. So let's say over here image, and for the image I'm going to actually have a div, and the div is going to be align self center, because this div is the child of the FLEXBOX container, so we can actually align it in the center. And also what we're going to have is margin left and 3 over here like this. Now within this div, what I would want is I would want an image, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be rounded over here, circle class, and then we're going to have a review image, and the review image again is going to be our own class. So we're going to have a review image. Now for the source, again, we're going to have images, and over here we're going to write that this is going to be customer number 1 over here. So for now it's very big and it's hard to tell what we're doing over here, but obviously what we're going to do is we're actually going to set it up that it has way less size. So in order maybe for us to work easier, let's go back over here to main CSS. Let's place over here a comment. I'm just going to say over here, and this is going to be a review section over here, and let's just add more hashtags over here. And what we would want to do over here is we would want is a review image. That's the class that we created. So review img, and over here let's just say width is going to be 150 pixels. So that way we can actually see better what we're doing. Now sure enough, now we have our image the way we want it. So again, we can save this and we can go back to our index, and we can keep adding things to the actual div that we created over here. And what we would want to add is the actual text. So if this one was our image over here like this was the child, then this is going to be the text. So let's just add over here, and this is going to be another div. So I'm going to say there's going to be div review, and we're going to say text. Then we're going to say padding left and right is going to be 5 over here. And within this div, we're going to have a heading 2, text capitalize over here, text capitalize, and then we'll have margin bottom 3. Then we're going to have primary color over here for the heading 2. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be customer, and let's say name over here. Again, let's press tab, and now we have our customer. Then after that, we would want is a paragraph, and the paragraph is going to have classes of lead for extra padding and text muted class over here. And over here, let's do a 20 words. So let's do lorem 20 Over here, press tab first time, and let's, you know what, maybe it's too much. Let's go back over here. Let's maybe add 10 and press tab first time, and let's press tab one more time. Now, once we have this set up, now you see over here we have the carousel item. We'll just see over here where it ends over here, and we can just write over here end of carousel item. Then let's grab this and let's copy this 2 more times. So let's say 1, 2. Now over here, what we would want is to get rid of this active. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that they are going to be showing right away. So let's get rid of them over here, and maybe let's test it out. And sure enough, everything is working. Our carousel is good enough. Now let's change the image. Remember over here we had image number 1. So let's say image number 3 over here. And this guy is going to be image number 2 over here like this. So this is image 2 and this is number 3. Now we're going to save the index.html. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the main CSS, and we're just going to add a few more styles over here. Now the first style that we're going to add is for the actual review item. Over here, if you see over here, we have this white background. So what we're going to do is we're going to say review item, and what we would want is a background, and we're going to say RGBA over here 255, 255, 255, and then we're going to say 0.7 over here. So this is going to be the white background that we would want for the review item. And also what we would want is we would want a clip path property over here, and we'll use a polygon over here. And the way we're going to use the polygon is that polygon uses, again, the same as, let's say, with a transitions. It uses X and Y axis. And if we imagine this left point over here is going to be our first starting point. And over here, the X is 0, and also the Y is 0. So this would be our starting point. Now over here, this is going to be X 100, but Y is still 0. However, over here, we have X 100 and Y is also 100. So this is the furthest point away from both of them. And if we're going to go back over here, this is going to be Y 100 and X 0. So how do we set this up? So first, what we're going to say is that X actually is going to be 5%. Then Y is going to be 0 over here. We're going to place a comma. Then X is going to be 100%. And over here, Y is going to be 0 over here like this. Then we're going to have X value of 90%. And Y is still going to be 100. And you see what we're doing. We're cutting out parts of whatever element we chose over here. See over here? I'm saying it should start over here at X is 5, but the Y is 0. Then it should go where X is 100 and Y is 0. Over here you can see X is 90 because we're counting like this 90. So this is 0, this is 90, and this is 100. And Y is still 100. Now the last one is going to be 0 and 100%. So you see what happened. What we did is we cut out over here this section. We said we only are interested in this section. So we don't care about this because we only want to start from 5. And we don't care about this. We only want to start from 90. And this is how we can use the clip path property. And once we're done with the polygon, we're actually done with this section. So we can go back over here. We have a recording over here. And once we go down, you see over here, this is going to be our customer. So once we keep scrolling over here, I just need to check why there is no image. So let me go back over here to the index.html and check it out why the image is not showing and the reason why it's 2S over here. So let me save this. Let me refresh over here. And now sure enough, we have both things. We have a customer image over here and we have a customer with the name, and over here, this is going to be the text. And now we're ready to move on to our next section. Now the next section we're going to be building is going to be theme section. And for this section, we're going to use a Bootstrap cards. And over here, we're going to look at how we can place images over here on top of the card. And then over here in the footer, again, we're going to use a FLEXBOX properties in order to place our icons over here like this. So let's go ahead to our index.html, and always, as always, let's start with a comment. So here I'm going to say team, and I'm going to copy and paste the line over here, and over here we're going to say end of team, end of team. Now once we have the end of the team, the next thing that I would want to do is actually create a section. So I'm going to say over here section, and we're going to say over here an ID, and this is going to be team. Now once we have this, let's say a class of top bottom padding 5 over here. Then once we're done, the next one we would want is a container, and then within the container we're going to place a row, and over here within the row we're going to start placing our columns. And the way we're going to work is that we're going to set up a column that's going to be actually spanning on an extra small screen only 9 columns, and then on a small screen half the screen, and then on a large one 1/3. So over here, let's say that this is going to be common team member over here, and now over here within the team member we're going to have a div with the column 9, so it's going to be spanning 9 columns. Then we're going to say column small 6, so half the screen starting from a small screen, and then column large and 4 over here like this. And also we need to add a MX auto over here just to place it in the center once we have the small screen. So we're going to go over here, and we're also going to add a margin top bottom 4 for the small screen. We press it over here. Now we have our div. Then within the div we're going to place actually a card over here. Within the card, now that we have the card, next thing we're going to have a image. Within the image we're going to have a class of card image over here top, and then once we have the actual image, let's place the source. So over here I'm going to say images, and again we'll use a customer number 1 over here. So once we have this, see over here, now I have my card with an image on top. Now once I have my image, next one I would want is a card, and let's say over here body. That's going to be our next div that we're creating, and this div is still going to be within the card. So we're going to place it over here, card body, and then within the card body we're going to say card title div, and for the card title div we're going to have a heading 1 with a team member over here like this. So this is going to be over here our team member. We're going to press the tab over here and one more over time. So this is going to be our team member. And if we want over here, let's do a class, and let's do text capitalize over here. So this is going to be our team member. Then after that, what we would want is also a heading 4 over here, still within the card body, but not in the card title. So I'm going to say over here, then this is going to be a heading 4 with a class of primary color. And over here, we're just going to write that this is going to be chef. And in this case, all of them are going to work as chefs, I guess. And let's just grab this class also. Just copy and paste this over here. And then we over here have a chef. Then once we have this, now not inside the card body, but still within the card, now we would want actually a footer. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be footer. So card, footer, div over here, team icons, that's going to be our own div that we're making, the own div that we're styling. And like I said, this is going to be another FLEXBOX. So what we need is we need a D flex over here, justify content, and we're going to say between over here. Press tab, and now we have our div. Now over here, what I would want is I would want a links. So I'm going to start over here with the link, and I'm going to say that this is going to have a I element inside it. So I'm going to say over here I FAB, and then we're going to say FA Facebook over here like this. Then also we're going to add FA2X over here. So this is going to be double the size of normal font awesome icon. And over here, let's just place a hashtag because we're not going to be adding any kind of link to the Facebook. Now, once we have this, now what I would want is copy and paste them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see that once we have set up the flex and justify content between, there's always going to be a padding over here like this. Now, next, what we would want is to actually style them over here and actually add a different font awesome icons over here. So if we have all of them Facebook, we would want to change them around a little bit. So the next one is going to be Instagram over here. We're going to say Instagram. Then after that, we're going to have a Twitter over here. And then after that, we're going to have Yelp. So I'm going to say over here, Yelp. Now that we have them, next thing, let's go ahead and let's actually copy and paste this. So we have our first team member, and not within the row. We can just say over here, end of team member. And let's just grab this and copy and paste this again 2 more times. So we'll select this 1, 2, and over here now we have our 3 cards. And what we would need to do over here, we just need to change the images. So if this guy is going to be number 3, then over here, you know what? No, this is going to be number 2, and this is going to be number 3. So this guy is going to be number 3. Now, once we have them, let's go to main CSS and let's actually style this. What do we have for the team? And we're going to have 3 rules for the team, so it's not going to be that big. So let's say over here, this is going to be team, bunch of hashtags over here, bunch of hashtags over here. Now, once we have the team, then we're going to say team icons. Say team icons over here, A. So we're going to select team icons, and over here we're going to say color, hashtag 3B, and 5998. 5998 over here. So we're going to add over here the Facebook color to all of them. Now, obviously, if you want to be more specific, you can target each and every one of them and add the color that you would have for Twitter and for Instagram and all that. But for the limitations of the time, I'm just not going to do that. But over here, we're going to say, again, there's going to be transition, all. And we're going to say, let's say over here, 2 seconds, ease, over here, in and out over here. So this is going to take a transition, and transition is going to take 2 seconds. Now, once we have this over here, the next thing that I would want to do is actually add a hovering effect. So I'm going to say team icons over here, A, and once we're hovering, what should happen? So over here, what should happen, there's going to be color. So we're going to go back to the black color over here like this. And also we're going to have a transform, and that's going to be translate, and we're going to say Y. So we're going to push this link a little bit up as I'm hovering over it. So what do we need over here is -5 pixels. So what happens over here as I'm hovering, you see that it changes the color to the black, and it also hovers up over here like this. Now, once we have this, we can just save this, not over here, but actually over here, we can just save this, and we can go back to the sushi project and refresh. And now you can see that I have my 3 cards. Now, if I make this screen smaller, you can see that we're going to have 3 cards over here for large screen. Then over here, this is going to be 2 cards, but then this is going to be in the center. And if I'm going to go to the extra small screen over here, there's going to be 3 cards. They're not going to be spanning all the way because we have column 9, but they're still going to be in center. And once we're done with this section, we're ready to go and start working on the next section. Now, the next section we're going to be building is going to be contact section, where we're going to have a card. The card over here has a form. Within the form, there's going to be some inputs. We're also going to use a prepend over here. We're going to have a input group. Then we're going to have a button over here. And on the left-hand side, we're going to have a map over here like this. So let's go ahead and let's start working over here. So what we're going to say over here, that this is going to be a contact section. Contact section over here. Select the line and copy and paste. And over here, we're going to write that this is going to be end of contact section. Now, once we have these 2 comments, then the next thing that we would want to do is we would want to actually add a section over here. And for the section, we're going to say ID of section. ID of section. Then once we have the section, then we're going to have a container, and we're going to say fluid, because in this case, we wouldn't want no paddings. And also, we're going to add our own class. We already created this one, so no padding class. So this is going to make sure that there's for sure no extra padding, because we don't want the padding. We want extra space actually this time. Next, we're going to create a row over here. And for the row, the first thing is going to be column, medium 6. So the column from the medium screen is going to be spanning 6. And also there's going to be margin top bottom 3. And also over here, we're going to say align, self, and center. And the reason for that is that we would just want to place our map, our iframe, actually in the center over here. Then once we have this, next thing that we would want is we would want actually a div. And over here, we're going to say for div, we're going to say embed responsive over here class. And also we would want a class of embed over here responsive, and we're going to say 21 by 9, and that's going to be the size that we would want. Now there's different actually sizes we can use, but in this case we're going to be using 21 over here by 9. Now once we have this, also we're going to have a height, and we're just going to add a height of 60, and that's the class that we're going to add again ourselves. Now once we have this over here, this div of embed responsive and embed responsive and the actual size over here 21, then what we would want is get a iframe. So we're going to go back to Google Maps over here, and we're just going to say that there's going to be a Google map, and we're going to say over here Chicago. Now once we have the Chicago, the next thing we would want is to have share, and we're going to say over here embed map. Now we're going to copy and paste this iframe over here. We're going to go back and we're going to place it over here within this embed responsive. We're going to copy and paste this over here. Well, first we're going to say width for this iframe is going to be 100%. That's going to be the first thing that we would want. We're going to get rid of the height over here. We're just going to delete this over here like this. Then we're also going to add another class over here. So we're going to say over here class, and we're just going to say that the class is going to be embed responsive item. So I'm going to say responsive, and we're going to say item over here like this. Then we're going to create more room, and sure enough, you can see over here now we have our map. So this is going to be our first column. Then the next column is going to be more interesting, because here is where we're going to be placing the card and our inputs in the card. So we're going to say column over here, medium, and we're going to say 6, margin top bottom 3. Now once we have this column over here, next what we would want is a card and also a text center class over here. Now once we have the card, then it's time for card header. So we're going to say card header, and also we would want a text, and let's say over here text uppercase. Now in the header, we're going to have a heading 1, and we're just going to say that there's going to be contact, and let's say list over here. Now once we have this, let's go back over here, and you can see that this didn't work because it didn't apply over here. So let's go back over here and let's say class, and let's say over here text uppercase over here like this. And maybe we can just delete this guy over here. We don't need it over here. Let's just leave the card header. Then within the card, but not in the card header, we're going to have a card body over here. Within the card body, we're going to actually place a form. We're going to delete the action. We don't want any kind of action over here because we're not going to be connecting to any kind of database. And over here, we're going to have a form. And within the form, the first thing we're going to say over here, input and group. So the input group is over here for these icons over here. See over here, we have these icons. So this is why we're using this input group. I'm just going to get rid of the map. We don't need the map anymore. And here what we're going to say is that there's going to be a div with input group, and we're going to say margin top bottom 3 over here. And then we're going to have another div with input group, and we're going to say prepend. And this is going to mean that we're adding over here this icon in front over here of this input. If we would be writing it differently, then we're going to be appending it over here. Now, once we have the prepend over here, we're going to say that there's going to be span with a class of input group, and we're going to say text over here. And the ID is going to be input, and we're going to say text over here. Now, once we have the span ready, within the span, there's going to be FAS, FA, and we're going to say user over here. So you see over here, this is going to be our user. Now, once we have this user ready, now we have our input group. Next thing that I would want is actual input. So within the input group, but not in prepend over here, now I would want my input. So I'm going to write over here input, and then let's say we're going to have a class of form control, and then we're going to say form control large control, and we're going to say large over here. So this is going to be our form, and then we're going to have a type is going to be text, and the ID is going to be also text. So I'm going to say over here ID, and we're going to say the ID is text over here like this. Now, once we have this, then we can also add a placeholder. So let's add a placeholder, and we're going to say enter your name here, over here like this. Now, this is going to be our first input group over here. Now let's go over here and let's say 1, 2, 3. So these are going to be our 3 input groups. Now let's go maybe back over here and let's add comment that this is going to be 1 input group. This is going to be another input group as a comment. So later on, maybe if we need, we can actually see the difference. So I'm going to say our input group over here, and also over here, there's going to be an input group. So I'm going to say over here, input group. Now, once we have the input groups, now we would need to do styling for each and one of them, because not all of them are going to be text, and not all of them have the same user font awesome icon. So for the second one, what we're going to have is we're going to have an ID, first of all, of input phone. So if we're going to go back over here, we're going to have an input phone for the span. Then over here, we're going to have a phone. So this is going to be the phone icon. Then over here, we're going to have another one, input type text ID. We're just going to say that this is going to be a phone. Then over here for the placeholder, let's write enter your, and let's say phone here, over here like this. Now this is it for this input. The next one is going to be actually a email. So again, we're going to go back over here. We're going to use this one as envelope over here. The input is not going to be text. It is actually going to be a email. So we're going to say email over here. The type is going to be over here, email. And then after that, we're going to have form controls, where we already have. And then we're going to have enter your, and let's say over here, email here. And once we have added the last input, I actually copied and pasted one too many. So we can go back over here and we can just delete the last one over here. We're just going to go with 3. But what we would want is to add a button over here. So still within the form, what we're going to say over here, button. And for the button, we're going to say that this is going to be a type, and we're going to say submit over here. Then we're also going to have a class. And for the class, we're going to say btn block over here, and btn large. So this button is going to be spanning all across because it's button block, but it's also going to be button large. Then also we're going to have a text uppercase over here, and then within this button we're going to have a font awesome icon, and then we're going to have some text. So first let's write text, click here over here, and also let's do a font awesome icon. So we're going to say over here that there's going to be a I, and then we're going to have FAR over here, and FA, and over here point over here, and let's say point right. And also what we would want is a margin right number 2. Press tab over here. Now we have our font awesome icon, and over here this is going to be our text. Now also what we can do is we can add a class that we're going to style ourselves later. So I'm going to say over here contact btn over here. And once we have set up our HTML, we can actually go ahead and start styling our contact section. So like I said, now that we need to style the contact form, let's go ahead to main CSS and start styling the contact section. So the first thing that we would want to do is we would want to go to main CSS. Now once we're in the main CSS, we would want to make a comment, and over here we're going to have a hashtag, and I'm going to say contact over here. Now once we have the contact comment ready, the next one we're going to create a height of 60 the class. So remember we added this class. Now we would want to style it. And over here we're going to write min height, and we're going to say over here 60 view heights over here. So again, any viewport, this should be 60% over here, because this is going to be 60 view heights over here. Now you can see over here there's something not working. And if we're going to go back over here, you can see that I actually misspelled it over here. It is not going to be responsive, it is going to be responsive. So now once we do that, you can see over here now we have our map and everything is working. Now once we have the map, next thing that I would want to do is I would want to style actually this card. See over here this card, this is how I would want to style. So I'm going to say over here that I'm going to make way more room over here, and then we're going to start applying styles. So I'm going to say over here contact, over here card. So what I would want to do with the card, first I'm going to say background, and the background is RGBA, so this is going to be background with an opacity of 0.5. So I'm going to say over here 0.5. And the reason why this is not working, because I messed up with an ID. So I'm going to go back over here, and this actually needs to be contact section, not section over here. So once we save this, and once we save it over here, now if we scroll down over here, now you can see that we have our black background with an opacity of 0.5. Now also what I would want to do is add a transition, and I'm just going to say that transition is going to be 2 seconds, but first we're going to say all 2 seconds, and we're going to say ease over here. Now once we have this transition, then we're going to say over here contact, and then we're going to have card, and then we're going to say hover. Now once we have this set up, I'm just going to say over here background, and we're going to say RGBA, and for the RGBA we're going to use a darker color. So if this one had an opacity of 0.5, so the black color with 0.5 opacity, over here we're going to use the same color, black color, but we're going to use a opacity 0.8. So this is how we're going to do that. Then once we're done with this, now let's work with the card header. So I'm going to say hashtag over here, and we're going to say contact, and over here we're going to say that card header over here was going to have a color, and we're going to use the red color. So D33, and over here 25F over here. So that's going to be the color for the header. Then now we would want to work with card input and input group text. So I'm just going to say over here contact, and input group, and we're going to say text. Now what we would want over here, first we would want a background, and we're going to want the same background, so I'm going to copy and paste the background over here. Then what we would want is a border color, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say border and color, and again we're going to copy and paste the color of the border, and then we're going to have a color, and the color we're actually going to use a hashtag 242424, so the black color. Then we would want to work with the card input, so we're going to say over here hashtag contact, and we're going to say card and input. And what we would want for the card input, we're going to say color, and over here there's going to be hashtag 606060 over here. This is going to be the color for the card input. Now once we have the actual color, then we would want to work with a placeholder. So what we're going to say over here is there's going to be contact over here, card, and we're going to say input, and we're going to say placeholder, input and placeholder. Now, what was the reason for this color over here? You see over here, once I start typing, this is the color that I'm going to have. But I also want the same color for my placeholder. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be exactly the same. That the color is going to be the 606060. So I'm going to copy and paste this over here. And once we have the placeholder color, now we're ready to work with a button. And over here, we're going to say contact, and contact button. So let's do a contact and btn. So that was the class that we had. And over here, we're going to do a color. And for the color, again, we're going to use the red one. So we're going to say color, and let's get the red color over here, copy and paste. And once we have the color over here, then we again would want the same with the border color, border color. And again, we're going to copy and paste this. Then we would want a transparent background. So transparent over here like this. And then we'll add a transition. So we're going to say over here transition all 2 seconds and ease in out over here like this. Now once we have this, let's do a contact button hover. So contact btn, and let's do hover. Now once we have this, again, let's do a background, and over here we're going to use a different one. So we're going to say C9 C1 AC over here. So this is going to be the white grayish color, and for the color we're going to do another red one over here, and the border color we're going to use again the same as white one. So we're going to say over here border color over here, and we're just going to get again this guy over here. So let's copy and paste this, and let's place a semicolon and see what we have so far. So as I'm hovering over here this button, this is what I have so far. So the color is going to be white gray, and over here the text is going to be a red one. So now let's go to the big screen over here. Let's refresh and let's see what we have. So first of all, what we have over here is this map, and over here this is going to be our form. Now I'm noticing one thing over here. You see over here for the index, we actually placed this one in the center, but that was the wrong one to actually place in the center. So let's cut this one out, align self center, and let's go to the second one and actually align this one in the center. So let's save this so you see what I have over here. I have the map, and I have over here this contact list. So now when I refresh, see over here the contact list is actually in the center of the map because the map is bigger. And as you can see over here, as I'm hovering over this contact list, actually the card gets darker. So now that we're done with this, we are ready to go and actually start working on our next section. Next two things that we're going to be building is going to be footer, and over here this back to the top button. So let's go ahead and let's actually build these things. Now with a footer, we're actually going to cheat a little bit. And what do I mean by this? You see over here we created these top icons, and what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to grab them and I'm going to copy and paste them. So we're not going to be very original, and we're going to keep the footer exactly the same as the top icons. So what we're going to do over here, we're going to scroll down and we're going to find where is the end, and over here we're just going to copy and paste this, and then let's just change this around. So you can see over here we have the font awesome icons. Now what I would want to do is change this to copyright 2018. So what I'm going to say over here, this still is going to be primary color. This still is going to be text uppercase instead of capitalized maybe. Let's do over here uppercase, text, and we're going to say uppercase. Now once we have this, let's delete the address and let's keep it as a copyright. So we're going to say over here that we would want a ampersand, and over here we're going to say copy. So we're going to get a copy symbol, and then we're just going to say over here copyright over here, and then we're going to say 2018. Now once we have this copyright, then what I would want is actually at the very bottom we're going to create a back to the link over here. So we're going to say over here that this is going to be a link, and this is going to have a padding 1. That's going to be the only class. And over here within this link, we're going to have a font awesome, and the font awesome is going to be FA, and then we're going to have a FA arrow up. So we're going to say over here, let's say FAS, and this is going to be FA arrow, and we're going to say up over here. And then we're going to add another class of primary color class. This is going to be to the I, and then we're going to have FA3X over here. Let's press tab, and now you see over here, and then we have our font awesome icon. Now over here, let's do a top icons. That's going to be our destination. So here with the target, we're going to say top icons. And if you remember, that was actually over here, our div, our ID that we created. So we're going to say over here, you see over here, these div ID top icons. Let's just get rid of this because this one is not going to have an ID. And now what happens once we press over here, this is going to go all the way to the top. Now, once we have this, then another thing that I would want is the actual ID for this link. So I'm going to say over here an ID, and this is going to be back to, and we're going to say top over here. Now, once we have the link ready, we can actually test it out where it is and see how it works. So once we press it, you can see that it actually goes all the way to the top. Now, again, we haven't added the smooth scroll yet, and we still haven't add a positioning, because you can see over here in our final document, this is actually going to be sitting over here, and once we keep scrolling, it's all the time going to be there. So let's go to main CSS, and let's just add these two classes that we would want. So first over here, we're just going to say that this is going to be a footer over here, and for the footer, what we would want is first we're going to target this back to top ID, and for this ID we're going to say background, and we're going to say background is going to be C, 9C over here, and then we're going to have 1A, and we're going to say C again. So this is going to be our background over here. Then after that, we're going to have a border, and we're going to say border radius, and for the border radius, we're going to say this is going to be 10 pixels over here, something like this. Now, once we have this over here, we can also do a display inline block. So let's say over here that this is going to be display, and we're going to say inline block over here. Now, once we have this, let's do a class that we're going to actually style later. And not just style later, we're actually add this class later on. And this is going to be scroll over here, and let's say top. So this is going to be the class name. And over here, we're going to say position, and we're going to add fixed, and bottom over here, bottom, and this is going to be 70 pixels over here, and right is going to be 10 pixels. So what I'm saying is I'm only going to add this class once I start scrolling down the page. And if I'm not scrolling down the page, then actually this button is just going to be sitting over here. Now let's go ahead and let's actually save this, and let's start working on a nav bar. Now, like I said, the next section we're going to be working on is going to be the actual nav bar. So first let's place the nav bar, then let's style it, and then let's work with our JavaScript, with the smooth scrolls, and with actually sticky nav bar and all that good stuff. So let's go back over here to our index.html, and if we remember, we had a comments for the nav bar. So we're just going to go back to those comments, and over here we're going to write that this is going to be the nav with a class of nav bar and also nav bar, and we're going to say expand, and let's say large over here. Now once we have the nav ready, then the first thing that I would want to do is place a nav bar brand. So I'm going to say there's going to be an A, and this is going to be nav bar brand, and this nav bar brand is going to text uppercase over here, and it's also going to have a primary color over here like this. Now once we have our nav bar brand, for the href we're just going to use a hashtag. We don't really need a destination. And over here let's write that this is going to be sushi monster over here. Then once we have the nav bar, next thing that I would want is actually button. And the button is going to be used for the small screens. So I'm going to say over here, this is going to be navbar toggler. This is going to be the class associated with our button. So this is going to be navbar toggler. Now, once we have this over here, then there's a couple of more attributes that we actually need to write over here. And the first one is going to be type. And we're just going to say over here that this is going to be button. Then we're going to say data. And data, this is going to be toggle. And data toggle is going to value is going to be collapse. Collapse over here. Now after that we would want a data, and we're going to want target. And the reason we would want target, because later on we're going to be creating a div that's going to contain all our links, and this is a destination for this target. So we're going to say over here data target, and data target is going to be hashtag my navbar over here like this. Now once we have our button ready, we can just go back over here, and what we would want to do over here within this button, we would want to add our own styling over here, because you can see over here that if I, let's say, minimize the screen, if I'm going to go to the smaller screen over here, you see that this button looks like a typical Bootstrap button. However, it's not. Once we press over here, you see how these bars are actually moving. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to add our own bars over here, and then we will going to style them that once the user clicks it, then the bars are doing this kind of CSS transition. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to say that this is going to be a div with a class of toggler, and we're going to say btn. So toggler btn, and over here we're going to have 3 divs, and the first div is going to have a class of bar and a class of bar1, and then we're going to copy this line and copy and paste this. And over here we're going to change these in around. We're going to say bar2, and over here this is going to be bar3. Now once we're done with the button over here, now we're ready to actually create our links. So over here we're going to say this is going to be the links. Now in the links, we're going to start again with a div, and div is going to have classes of collapse over here, and then it's also going to have a class of navbar collapse over here, and it's also going to have a div, and we're going to say my navbar div. Now once I have all this running, you can see over here the ID needs to match exactly what we have over here, otherwise it's not going to work. And these classes are Bootstrap classes that we're adding, and over here we're going to just start placing the links. Now the first thing that we're going to do is have an order list, and we're going to have navbar nav class, and then we're going to also have mx auto. Now what is the reasoning for mx auto over here? So I'm going to first press the tab, and then I'm going to show you. You see over here, once we're going to go to the bigger screens over here, the items are actually sitting right in the center between navbar brand and over here this button, and that's the reason for mx auto. The same how we used it for columns to center it out, the same we're using over here to place the links exactly in the center. Now also, if I didn't cover this navbar expand, what this class means over here is the navbar is going to reach a size large, and then it's going to expand. So unless it reaches the size large, it's not going to expand. And everywhere else we're going to have over here this setup where we're going to have just navbar brand and the button over here. And again, we have obviously options of, let's say, small or medium or large. Now in this case I'm just using large because I have quite a bit items over here and I want them to look good, so therefore the items are only showing up over here once we reach a size large. Now we can also add few classes to have for the background, some generic Bootstrap classes, but I'm not adding them because we're going to be styling it ourselves. So over here, once we have the unordered list, then the next one we would want is a list item. Then we're going to have a nav item class, and within a nav list item, we're going to have a link, and the link is going to have a nav link class, text capitalize over here class, and then we're going to have an href. And in this case, the href we're going to have is going to be special items. And this was the reason why I wanted to do this last, because in this case we actually see what we're doing. Special over here items. And what's happening is that now as we're actually adding them, we can actually see what should happen. So let's say over here that if we have our link, and if we're going to go back over here and all the way on the top, see over here, this is going to be special items. So now once we click it, you can see that we're going to come all the way over here. So that was the point over here for this target that we're using with the nature. And now it's very straightforward. What we would want to do is we would just want to copy and paste this 5 times over here. So we're going to go back over here to list item, and let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we would want to change around is the actual name and where we're supposed to be heading. So over here, we're going to say that this is going to be menu. Over here, menu. And over here, we're also going to have menu. So we're going to say over here, menu. Then once we have this guy, let's just go ahead and maybe let's delete all of them so we can work a little bit easier. So let's delete this. Let's delete this. Let's delete special items. Over here, special items, and over here, special items. All of them. So let's go back over here. Let's just delete special items. Once we have special items deleted, then we're going to say hashtag over here. This is going to be about. Then for the actual name, we're also going to use an about. So we're going to say over here about. Then over here, we're going to say that this is not going to be an about. This is going to be reviews. So we would want to go to reviews. And the only thing that I'm doing is remembering the names of the divs that we created. And this was the ID for these sections. So over here, we're going to say reviews. And then over here, what we would want is a hashtag team. And also over here, we're going to write that this is going to be team. And then the last one is going to be contact. So hashtag contact over here. And we're just going to write contact. So contact over here. Now, once we have our nav ready, then what we would want to do outside of a unordered list, we would want to place a form. So I'm going to say over here, again, form. And we're going to get rid of the action. However, we're going to add for the form class, and we're going to say form inline, and then we're going to say display none. So we would want it for the small screens. However, once we reach the large screen, we're going to say display block, and then we're going to say margin right 5. So what we're saying is we only want it to be seen once we get to the large screen. If we are not on a large screen, on a smaller screen, we're not going to be able to see this button. And over here, let's create a button. I'm going to say button, and the button is going to have a few classes, class and btn, nav btn. This is going to be the class that we are styling ourselves. Text, and let's say capitalize over here, and over here we're going to write type, and we're going to say button. Now after that, we would want to write a text order, and we're going to say online. So once we have all this set up, we're going to have to go and first let's just check it out how it looks like. So this is how it would look without any CSS that we have added, and we can just check whether actually our links are working, and you can see that everything is working. So now we're ready to go to CSS and actually style this. So let's go to main CSS. And let's find where is the end of over here of this link. So this should be something along the lines of header. So we're going to look where's the keyframes over here. This would be the main button. This would be over here the sushi button. So let's go back over here and let's actually work with the last keyframe. So header link over here. And once we have the menu items, then over here we're going to create a comments for the navbar. So I'm going to say over here that there's going to be hashtag navbar, and over here we're going to add some more hashtags. Now the first thing that I would want to do for the navbar is we're just going to go back over here and let's look at where is our actual navbar. But what we would want is to select a navbar over here, and we're going to say first background, and let's do the background of a white grayish color. So C 9C, and then we're going to have 1AC over here. So this would be the background. Then we're going to say that there's going to be a padding 20 pixels and 20 pixels. So we can just write it padding 20 pixels over here like this. However, the reason why I'm writing over here like this for a top, bottom 20 pixels and left and right 20 pixels, because we're going to add one more class in a second, and I just want you to have a clear view what we're doing. So here we're going to say all, and I'm going to say 1 second, and we're going to say ease over here. Now the key over here is once I work with this sticky navbar over here, you see over here I have this 20 pixels and 20 pixels and 20 pixels padding. However, as I'm scrolling down, you see what happens. Once I get to the certain point, I have actually less padding over here. And the way we do that, we actually create a class over here, navbar, background, let's say whatever we call it, the class. And over here we're going to say that there's going to be padding, and we're going to use 5 pixels and 20 pixels. So once I get to the certain point, I'm going to make sure that with the JavaScript, I'm going to add this class to my navbar, and then this is going to overwrite this 20 pixels, and that's why the padding is going to be less. However, left and right is going to stay the same. It's going to be 20 pixels. And that's why I wrote over here like this. So top and bottom 20 pixels and left and right 20 pixels. So now you can see what we're actually are changing. Then after that, what we would want is work with a navbar brand. So I'm going to say navbar, and we're going to say brand. And for the navbar brand, I'm going to say font size 30 pixels over here. And then for the hovering, we're going to say like this. I'm going to say navbar and brand hover. And for the hovering, we would want a color to change to black. So I'm going to say 242424. Now, also what we would want probably is to add a transition. So let's go back over here and let's say transition. And let's say all and 1 second ease over here. So over 1 second of time, this should change colors. Now I would want to work with the links, and over here we cannot see the links, so maybe we can just press the button, and now we're going to be able to see the links. And don't worry, we're going to still make sure that we can see the button. Then right now this would be nav and link over here, and in the nav link we're going to say color hashtag 242424 over here. Text decoration, we're going to say none. Over here we're going to get rid of these annoying little underlines. Then we're going to say transition again, and we're going to say transition all 2 seconds ease over here. And then we're going to do a font size, and that one is going to be 23 pixels over here. So the pixels got bigger. Now next, what I would want for the nav link, I would want a hover effect. So I'm going to say nav link, and over here we're going to say hover. And for the hover, what we would want is a color hashtag D33 over here, 25F over here. So let's go back over here, and as you can see, as I'm hovering, the text is changing to the red one. However, again, it's happening over 2 seconds time frame. Now once we have the nav link hover, now we would want to work with this nav button over here. So let's start over here. We're going to say nav button, and first what I would want is a btn, so the correct class first, btn, and over here we're going to say background, and let's do background transparent over here like this. Then for the color, let's do a hashtag D, and then we're going to say 3325F over here. Then we would want a border, and the border is going to be 2 pixels solid, and let's do again another this red color. So we can copy and paste this over here, copy and paste it over here. And once we have this, let's do a font size over here, and let's do a font size of 23 pixels. So font size 23 pixels. So once we add a font size, let's just go over here and let's check it out on a big screen how our button looks like, because we cannot see it on a small screen. So this is the button we're working on right now. And then after that, let's add again a transition, and we're going to say transition is going to be all 2 seconds ease over here, ease. Then after we're done with this, now we would want a nav btn, and let's say hover. So this is going to be a hover. Now for the hover, we will want a color, hashtag 242424, so black color. Then we would want a border. So again, border, we're going to have a 2 pixels solid, and again we're going to use the same thing, hashtag 242424 over here. And then we're going to say transform. So for transform, we're going to say rotate, and we're going to say 10 degrees over here. So let's save this, and let's actually check it out what we have so far. So refresh again. This is going to be our button. Now as I'm hovering, you can see what's happening. Now once we have this one set up, now let's work with the toggler button over here. And we're going to say toggler btn over here like this. And for the toggler button, first we're going to say border 2 pixels solid, and we're going to say again the red color over here like this. So you see over here, this is going to be our toggler button. Now also what we would want is a padding 5 pixels over here for this button, and then we would want a transition. And again, we're going to do transition all, and let's say 2 seconds ease, 2 seconds, and we're going to say ease over here. Now once we have this one set up over here like this, then we would want to actually work with these bars over here. We actually would want to place these bars inside here. And over here, what we're going to say is that there's going to be a bar over here, and for the bar, we would want first a width of 30 pixels over here. Then we would want a height of 3 pixels over here. Then we would want a margin of 5 pixels over here like this. And then we would want a background. So let's say over here, there's going to be a background. And we're going to say over here, hashtag D33. And we're going to say 5F over here like this. Now you see over here, once we add the bar, nothing is changing with this class. Now the problem with this one is that automatically it added a span, and we actually would want div over here. So I'm going to say over here div. So we're going to go back to toggler button, and we're just going to add over here div. And what we would want to do over here, we would want to do the same thing. So I'm just going to select them all over here like this, and we're just going to change this to div. So we're going to go back over here. We're going to delete this, and over here we're going to write div. And now once we have the div, everything is working. So we're just going to save it over here, and we're going to go back over here, because what we would want is we would want to add another transition. So we're going to add another transition. I'm going to say all 5 point over here seconds, and we're going to say ease. Now why I'm adding this transition? Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to create 3 classes over here, and again I'm going to use a JavaScript to add these classes once I click the button over here. So once I click the button, these over here bars are going to change location. So you see over here, once I have the bar, once I click it, see what happens? They actually change the way they look. So let's go back over here, and let's add this last class. So here I'm going to say change, and I'm going to say bar 1. And what should happen once I add this class of change? First, the bar 1 should transform over here, and I'm going to say rotate -45 degrees over here. Then we're going to say translate, and we're going to say translate -5 pixels over here and 6 pixels. So that's going to be bar number 1. Now for the bar number 1, for that bar number 2, we're going to change it around a little bit, and we're going to say over here like this. We're going to say for the bar number 2, once we add the class of change, we're just going to say over here opacity is going to be 0. So the bar number 2 is going to disappear once we click it. And for the last one, we're just going to change it around. For bar number 3, the rotate is going to be positive, the translate is going to be -5, and over here we're going to say -8. So we're going to say -8 pixels. So once we save this one over here, we're not going to be able to see anything right now, because like I said, next what we would want to do is go to our script.js and actually add all the classes and smooth scroll so the nav bar is working. So now we can close the main CSS and we can actually open up a script.js, the file. Now, you know, over here that we have ripples and we have magnific pop-up. So we can just push it down because we're going to need way more space. And over here, the first thing that we're going to do, let's do this navbar toggler. So then we're going to do that with the jQuery. We're going to select the navbar toggler. So I'm going to say we're in navbar and we're going to say toggler. Now, once we have the navbar toggler selected, over here, we're going to add a click. And this is going to be a click handler. Then once we have this, we're going to say that there's going to be an anonymous function over here. And over here, we're going to place a curly braces. Now, once we have this, then what should happen once we click the navbar toggler? Well, it's going to be very basic. We're going to say over here that once we click the navbar toggler, the actual navbar toggler should have some class over here. We're going to add some class to the navbar toggler. And what is going to be the class? Well, the class is going to be the class of change. If you remember, the class of change was where the bars were actually doing the transformation. So over here, what I'm going to say, I'm going to use a jQuery and I'm going to use the toggle class. Not only I'm going to add or remove the class, actually every time we click the button, it's going to toggle the class. And over here, what would be the class name? This is going to be the class of change. And like I said, if you remember over here, the class of change was over here. So you see over here change, bar 1, bar 2, and bar 3. And over here, this is not what we wanted. We wanted main CSS. Now if we're going to go back to script and we're going to save the script over here, see what happens. Once I click it over here, now the bars are changing over here. Now the transformation is happening. Now because we're using the navbar toggler and the actual button is by default from the Bootstrap. That's the reason why over here we changed the actual amount of time that it takes. You see over here we used 0.5 because with the toggler by default it opens up much more sooner than, let's say, if we would set up for 2 seconds. So that was the reason for this 0.5 seconds. And like I always keep telling you, in most cases you're usually going to use something like this. The only reason why I use these 2 seconds so we can actually see for sure that our animation is working. Now this would be for a navbar toggler. Now let's make things interesting and let's go back to script.js. Let's say that this is going to be toggler btn. So this was a toggler button. And over here, let's do a scroll. So now we would want a sticky over here, navbar. Sticky navbar and less padding over here. Now, how do we do this? So first, what we're going to say again, we're going to use a selector and we're going to say window. So first, we would want to select window. Then we're going to use a scroll. So we're going to say over here, scroll. And once we're scrolling, again, what should happen? So I'm going to say again, function. And over here, this is going to be an anonymous function over here. And in the function, we're going to set a variable. So we're going to say let. And the let is, let's say the name of the variable is going to be position. And the position is going to be equal to this. So we're going to be selecting right now this. And then we're going to say this. And we're going to say scroll top over here. So what I'm saying over here is that this variable is going to be actually equal to the scroll top position at any point over here. So you see over here, this is going to be actually equal to the position. And if you want to really test this out, let's say over here console, we're going to say log, and let's do a position. So now what we can do is, let's say the script.js, let's go back and let's make it maybe bigger screen, and let's refresh over here. Let's open up a Google Developer Tools over here. And once we have the console, and over here, once we start scrolling, you can see what happens. You see this number over here? This pretty much tells us where we at at any screen. Obviously, how many pixels down are we? If we keep going up, now our value is changing. If we're gonna keep going over here, the value keeps adding up. See over here, this is gonna be 124. Then I went back to 0. Then I went back over here again. So let's refresh over here everything. And again, if we start scrolling over here, now you can see what happens. These would be the values. Now, once we have them over here, once we have the values for the position, we can actually use the position. And the reason for this is that I want to set it up this variable. And once this variable gets the value over here to the point where the nav bar is actually hitting over here the top of the window, I actually would want to apply two classes to this nav bar. So what I'm going to say over here, that if over here, if this position over here, position is actually bigger or equal to 718 pixels, then I would want to add class to the nav bar. So I'm going to say over here, nav bar, over here, add, and we're going to say add class. Over here, add class, and what class I would want. First, I would want to remember the class of navbar background, the one that minimized the padding. So navbar background over here. This would be the class number 1. I also would want to add a class that is being used by the Bootstrap, and the class name is fixed. And usually we would write this fixed class all the way over here in index. We can go back over here. We can write that we would want fixed top, to be more precise. That's the class name, and then the navbar would be fixed. But since we have over here on the very top, and now we can close this, on the very top you see over here we have the icons. So I don't want this navbar to be fixed right away. I actually want this navbar to be fixed only once it reaches over here. So what we're going to do over here, I'm going to write in script.js that also the same thing. We would want to add another class. So I'm going to say over here that I'm going to copy and paste this over here, and let's maybe make this smaller so we can see. And another class that we would want to add would be a Bootstrap class, and we're going to say over here fixed, and we're going to say top. Now we're not done, because obviously our position is going to go back to normal. We're not always going to be less than 718. So over here what we're going to say is else, and we're going to write else, and now we're going to copy this, and now we're actually going to remove these classes. So once we're scrolling and the position is not more or equal to 718, we're going to remove these classes. So over here I'm going to write remove, and we're going to say remove class. Now it types two classes over here, so we need to delete this, and we can just copy and paste this one over here. And we're going to go back over here, and we're going to copy and paste this. So let's save this in a script.js. Let's refresh over here, and let's see what happens. Now, as I'm scrolling down, I'm scrolling. Once the variable gets to 718, you see what happens. First, the navbar becomes sticky, and then also the padding changes. And you see, if we add this transition, the change happens over time. It doesn't happen right away suddenly. So this is it for a sticky navbar. Now the next one would be a smooth scroll. So let's go back over here and let's write for the smooth scroll. So we're going to say smooth, and we're going to say scroll over here. Now first, what I'm going to select. First I'm going to select all the links in a nav bar. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to say over here nav, and I'm going to say item and a. So now I'm selecting all the links. And again, I'm going to add a click function. I'm going to say function over here, anonymous function, and in an anonymous function, first we're going to say link, and we would want to prevent the default over here. So we're going to write over here prevent, and we're going to say default. So that's going to be the first thing that we're doing. Then what we would actually want to do is write over here link also. So this would be the element that we're working. Now link, this would be prevent default. Then again, we're going to create a variable. So we're going to say target over here. And the target in this case is going to be equal to over here. And in this case, you see over here, once we're selecting with a jQuery, we're actually selecting all the links over here. And what I'm saying is that at first I would want to get this link because we're getting a list of links. And what I would want is to get the actual href of the link that I'm clicking over here. So what I'm going to say over here, attribute, since the href was an attribute, and we would want the href attribute value. So what I'm getting back over here, every time I'm going to click of one of the links, it's going to return me the attribute of the actual link. And since we're getting over here the list of them, I would want the actual one that I'm clicking. Then once I have this, next one I would want to do is have a HTML and the body. So both of the elements, HTML and body. And what should happen? first I'm going to say animate, and then I'm going to add some values. And over here, since this is going to be a object, then over here I'm going to say that there's going to be a scroll top, over here value, and over here the value is going to be like this. It's going to be equal to a variable that we created, target, over here target, and the target's value offset, so basically the position of the ID, and then we're going to write over here that there's going to be top. So over here we're going to say that this is going to be the top. So what I'm saying over here is that I would want to target the actual div over here and the offset and the top of it. Now over here I'm gonna do a -25 because the actual navbar also has the value, because you see over here once I click it and once it scrolls down to that position, I need to add the fact that there is a navbar on the top. So once I have this, now also what I would want to do is I would want to add over here a 3000 seconds, and 3000 milliseconds basically means 3 seconds. So the scrolling is going to take time over 3 seconds over here. So once I have this smooth scroll, let's go ahead and let's actually check it out how it works. So we're going to refresh over here, and you can see over here I'm going to get an href, and then this href is going to be used, and more precisely the href's top over here, offset, position, so this would be position, and the top over here is going to be equal to the scroll top. So this is where we need to scroll to. So once we refresh, once I, let's say, press menu, see what happens. I keep scrolling down, and now I get to the menu. Then I press about, and now I scroll to about. Then I get to reviews, and now I get to the reviews. So this is how it works. Now also, what I would want is I would want to set up a actual smooth scroll for rest of the things. Remember, first we had this link over here, and then we had a back to the top link over here all the way in the bottom. So let's go ahead, and what we can do with the jQuery, I'm just going to place a comma. Over here we're going to say header, and we're going to say link. So that was the class of the header link. And also remember, if we had a hashtag back to, and we're going to say over here top. So this was 2 of them. So let's save this over here. This was the 2 links that we also want to smooth scroll. Let's refresh, see what happens over here. Now we have a smooth scroll all the way to the top. And then over here we have a smooth scroll to the next section. See over here, now we have a smooth scroll to the next section. Now the problem over here might come up where once you start clicking over here and you start clicking a lot, what's going to happen is that jQuery is all the time doing them in a row. So you see over here, if I keep clicking, it's basically going to keep on smooth scrolling all the time, because it's still waiting to finish the last command that you actually added. Now, what would be the solution for this? Because sometimes it's actually going to stop working, because you can see over here, I clicked it, I'm not doing anything, and it's keep on scrolling. Now, what we need to do over here is, you see over here, animate. What we need to do is we need to write stop over here, and then another dot. Now, what this does, basically what I'm saying over here is that every time I'm going to click it, I want the previous animation to stop, and then only do the animation that I actually ordered. You see over here, it's still smooth scrolling. So I'm going to refresh over here, and now as I'm clicking, you see over here, it actually changes the value every time I click. It's not doing the smooth scroll anymore to the previous destination. It's actually going where I'm supposed to be. And like I said, sometimes it's not only that the never-ending smooth scroll, it's the fact that you can keep pressing and nothing is happening, because there's so many animations already in line that the jQuery gets confused. So let's click this one over here, and now we can scroll back all the way to the top. And now the last thing that I actually would want to do is add a class to a scroll top. Back to the scroll top. Remember, we need to place this over here once we start scrolling, once we get to past the 718 over here. See how it looks like? Once I start scrolling, then over here I have this back to the top button. So let's go back over here, and let's do the same window scroll. Now, how we're going to do this? What we're going to say over here is we're just going to grab this one over here. And let's say over here, we're going to say back to top over here. Copy and paste this. Now, what we're going to do over here, we're just going to change the values around. We don't want the navbar. What we want is hashtag back to, and we're going to say top. And the class that we would want to add is actually scroll top class. So scroll top class. And if you remember, that was the class that added a position fixed. Over here, if we're going to go down, see over here, this position fixed, bottom 70 and right 10 pixels. And since this is not sitting in any kind of container, this treats a parent container as a body. So what do we need over here? We're going to go back over here, and we're just going to delete this. Then we're going to delete both of these, and we're going to keep the position exactly the same because everything else is the same over here. Now what we want is grab this, copy this, and we're just going to remove this class. So here we're going to write remove class, scroll top. So remove class, not remove attribute. We would want remove class. Now once we have this, let's save this over here and let's refresh. And now if we have our sushi project, and again, let's refresh. Now you see what happens. I'm scrolling down. The moment I actually hit over here, this is my button over here. And I can just scroll back to the top over here like this. And now that we're done with the JavaScript, we're actually done with the project.